is
That's a big goof.
that's really up there. Hey, you're listening to the Power 92.3 WKVR. This is the Slouch. I'm Jdox. I'm here.
With me, Static.
Yes. And started a little later than normal, by which is to say only 10 minutes above when we start doing our starting normal stuff. And if this is your first time listening to the Slouch, hey, how are you doing? Nice to meet you. We play some music in the background, but mostly we just talk about some dumb stuff. If it's like this late on a Tuesday and you want to be hearing the sort of music that I would be playing, which would be like this, like Nicole Dollinger. If you want just that on its own, I don't know what to tell you. Look up Nicole Dollinger on SoundCloud or something, because we just like having it in the background when we talk, because it's pretty chill stuff. And we tend to get like not chill, and I don't know if that's for contrast's sake, for aesthetic purposes, or like how much not chill else we would get. But we're pretty chill, except for times when we start screaming about
Which
social
is usually
things.
what happens at the end, as we both sort of become delirious, I guess is the word.
I'm in a different chemical composition tonight. I've got more caffeine, actually, which tends to mellow me out, which is really messed up.
That is
and
weird.
I should get that checked because it makes me not work to do stuff. Oh,
No, it's fine.
It's either that, literally, like I get one big cup of coffee puts me to sleep. I get 2 big cups of coffee, and I'm racked with anxiety for 12 hours. And I've had long classes. I got long class blocks and some afternoons, and I'm just sitting in this single chair, just writhing, just going absolutely crazy by myself and tearing my own skin off. I want this song to play. I want it. Ugh. It's so good. And the stupid stream is saying that my thing is not connected, and it is. Anyway, I don't know what to tell you.
Your technology's warped.
It sure is. The Jdox and Slouch are fun people that like to hang around and talk about things. What are we talking about? We were talking about Soma earlier.
Which is a really fun game that I played a lot
video
of.
game on the internet that we have alluded to previously on this show because it fits in to some themes and some philosophical conundrums that we've had.
It's probably the first, like, intensely philosophical horror game I've ever played. In that a lot of the actual horror, like, yeah, there's plenty of, like, spooky, scary rooms and creepy, crawly enemies, but, like, the atmosphere of the game and, like, the themes of the game are just terrifying.
Those being?
Well, basically you play as a robot that has been sort of made and implanted with the memories of a guy who died like 100 years ago.
And you start off the game playing as the dude, and you go into a friend's place, and he's just like, hey, I'm going to scan your brain for this stuff.
Yeah, because you have, like, your brain is injured and
You got
bleeding.
a good brain, buddy.
Brain is injured and bleeding, which is not a good thing.
But we're going to scan it, and we're going to Photoshop the blood out.
And
So you can send it to your parents, make it look all nice.
well, no, the idea was that they'd hopefully find a treatment, which you find out later, playing as the robot, that they did not, and that
Bummer.
as he was, like, in the hospital dying, the guy was like, if you can do something useful with my scan, please do it. I don't want this to be for
And you know
nothing-
what we're going to
nothing."
do useful with your scan? We're going to put it into a robot
Well,
to torment
here's
it
the thing.
in the future when everything's gone to heck.
That wasn't the plan for it. What, hold on.
'Cause who would plan that?
What it was used for, well, because that was what a evil, like, not evil, like a psychotic AI used it for.
Oh, there always is, huh?
Yeah, oh, of course. But
Now, was this a psychotic AI in the sense that you normally have psychotic AIs, like the thing from System Shock or
No,
like
no.
iRobot?
You never
Was
talked
this,
to it.
No, but was this like an AI that was like a synthetic brain thing, or was this a person, like you're a person in the robot?
it's never really explicitly said, but it's I don't know that it's important.
Because I feel like if you're playing as essentially what is an AI, based off of this dude's bloody brain scan that was all blooded up, then like you shouldn't just be able to have like one of these cartoon AI villains. And I've talked literally about the idea of like if we have AIs and if we need to regard them as like people, like think about the backlog of 100 years of media that says an AI is a dangerous and crazy thing that will try to kill you.
It's sort of implied that it's not an AI in the same way as in it's not based on a brain scan, as in it was a very basic, like purely functional AI in the sense that it was kind of like a bunch of adaptive algorithms that sort of kind of took a life of their own in a way that was not inherently antagonistic, but because it lacked the ability to sort of understand nuance the way human brains do, it kind of accidentally killed everyone.
Which seems like the exact sort of thing that any other science fiction property would say, like, oh, this computer went insane because it lacks, like, the je ne sais quoi.
I mean, that's
of a
kind
real
of
human
that's
brain.
kind of exactly what it gets at. Is like we can't expect a machine because like the AI main enemy AI of the game is called WoW, which is like Warden.
Wow.
No, WAU. It stands for like Warden.
Wow.
Warden something something. I forget. Warden something unit.
You know the problem was that it was WAW, so it was actually wah. And the problem was that it was an AI based on the personality of Waluigi,
Oh.
who got in there and was like, wah, I'm not gonna win.
No,
play
but
tennis.
the original purpose of this AI was
I'm not gonna win.
to sort of keep
I'm
the
gonna
environment
kill all the humans.
keep the environment livable in this underwater station.
And it
and-
wasn't. They turned it into a horrible sea shanty.
Well, here's the thing. It was
Shantytown.
the original
Sea
goal was to
shantytown.
keep it livable and like monitor people's life signs, and so like it would adapt the temperature. Like if you're exceptionally hot, for example, it would lower the room temperature.
and they adapted it to like Atlanteans, to like the mermaids, because they sank half the freaking
No.
thing. They filled it full of water.
No, what happened was there was
Made it a
like
big
an
old swimming
extinction
pool.
level event on Earth's surface.
Better believe it.
Where pretty much everyone died, as far as they knew, under the sea.
Except for Jimmy and his bloody brains.
Oh my God, stop.
I can't get over the brain blood.
But and then it's sort of its directive changed to not just ensuring the environment was livable, but ensuring the preservation of humanity. And then a problem became apparent in that
There was no humanity.
Well, no, it was what is an acceptable condition for humanity, and one of the thoughts the game puts out there is, can a machine understand like what is an acceptable condition for humanity?
So you have to
So like you encounter various states of being. You encounter the enemies, which are human brain scans put in robots that have gone insane. You encounter robots that think they're people and cannot understand what has happened to them. And then there's you and a few other characters that were sort of engineered.
And the best shot we have for humans is the scan of a brain full of blood.
Well, yes, because
is
plot magic.
So is the whole point is to like find your inner humanity so that you can like
No,
say,
no.
hey, I am a human, and then the machine goes,
no,
we
no.
have humans
That's
again.
the
we're all
horrible
good.
thing, is the ending is absolutely like bleak and like grimdark, where like because the main goal of this game is there's this thing called the Ark, of course, going with the extinction and sea themes.
That's so overused.
But
why not
basically-
call it the Citadel?
Well, because
everything has a
the
freaking
Citadel's
Citadel.
overused as well.
I know,
But
that's the joke.
basically the point of the Ark is it stores the brain scans of all of the crew of this sea, which is where the AI was getting the brain scans to put in these robots,
Yeah.
because it was accessible to the Warden unit. And this was like basically a last-ditch effort. Like basically, we know we're gonna go extinct down here, so we're just gonna jettison something to prove humanity existed into space.
The Voyager probe. I don't know. So like,
Well,
when
but
Krypton
the
sent
idea
when Krypton-
is that humanity will live on in some sort of capacity.
I don't know, like when Kal Shazar or whoever.
Kal-El?
No, Superman's dad.
Jor-El?
When Jor-El like made a dumb little like cryo baby crystal
Shazar.
cocoon to Shazar, little Kal-El, little space Goku baby, off to the planet Earth to not explode. They didn't call that an arc for two reasons. First off,
It was one baby.
No, no.
It was a single baby.
Okay, three reasons. First off, it was one individual of one species instead of multiple species. Second off, they don't have human culture such like insofar as biblical references. And
say
third
they
off,
don't
because they
have-
knew it was overused. They called it a little baby chamber, and they shot it off into
They
space.
didn't call it that.
What did they call it?
They
though?
didn't call it anything. They
I gotta
called
look
it,
up what
They
the-
called it a rocket.
No. I gotta look. Okay, Superman's baby pod.
That could lead you to a lot of
Hey,
bad things.
it'll make sense.
No, but the ending is basically you've gone all this way to find the Ark and then basically shoot it into space. And as you're shooting it into space, you're uploading a copy of yourself to the Ark. And so the game sort of whites out, and then when the white fades, you're still sitting in the seat in like the ruined station underwater. And you're like, no, I'm supposed to be on the Ark. And then like your buddy kind of like turns back on as well, because she's also an AI. She's like, well, we lost the coin toss, and it literally just ends with the power failing, and your friend, the power is cut from your friend, and like the main character's just like, please don't leave me alone here.
Okay, I couldn't.
So it's like super dark.
Okay, I couldn't find anything as far as the name of
Because it
Kal-El's
was
like
not-
baby space crib.
There's never
I know
an official
it should
name
have been,
for
but like, So this is aside from like the actual discussion of the game. Like there's got to be something else that you can say like this is our last ditch little effort, little package to preserve whatever we can about humanity.
The surface was destroyed by like a extinction level event.
By the Matrix robots.
No,
they blocked out
was
the sun.
Some sort of Deus Ex Machina comet that killed all of humanity.
It was I don't know. I can't think of like a topical pop culture reference to say.
Well, but you get a shot of Earth at the end, and like literally all the land masses are like scorched. Like it's
cool.
One of the core conceits of the game that you find out later on, granted, is that
they just ignited the atmosphere.
There's like the surface is now barren.
Nice.
So like no one's left alive down there. Like there's relatively nothing remaining of humanity on the surface.
Cool. I bet there would be bacteria though.
So like this was literally like a desperate attempt to just like we existed.
Yeah.
Or I guess we still exist in some capacity. But there's a lot of like
in the form of like the worst like sunken out mildewy garbage robots at the bottom of the ocean having like episodes of schizophrenia and panic attacks while they're trapped in these weird little computer disks with no legs.
Space.
Wait, so you're not you play at the bottom of the ocean, but you want the thing that's in space.
What you're finding is a piece of hardware that is essentially a system that has stored the brain scans of everyone on the station plus yourself, because why not? And it creates like a simulated environment, and on Earth it only has it'll only last for a few decades. But one of the things in the game is, for some reason, I forget why, they gave a decent sounding plausible explanation, but I've forgotten it.
Yeah.
Is in space it'll last for supposedly like
I'm sure it was entirely scientific,
thousands of years, barring some sort of catastrophic something.
Yeah, like the sun.
And so it's like, oh, like last ditch effort to preserve something of humanity.
And inside that little thing was a space baby.
No.
And at the end of the game, you get your robot. You build a big ladder.
It's not 2001,
you build
a Soma
stack,
Odyssey.
A Soma Odyssey. You build a stack of your robot friends' body parts as they're screaming in agony. And because it's a moral decision about building a tower to space out of your friends, and then you climb up and you snatch the little space pod out of the sky, and you crack it open like a big gross egg, and there's like a bunch of weird jellyfish inside of it.
I hate you so much. No, but there's like so many moral and philosophical conundrums in that game. Like, you come across the computer that stores the original template that like the player AI was made from.
Cool.
And so you have the option to delete that or not. And like if you delete it, your character's like, no other like future Simons will have to experience this horrible thing I'm experiencing right now, which is like the horrible, and the game puts it this way, like the horrible reality of like waking up in like a robot body that is, and then to later find out you died like 100 years, like the real you died like 100 years ago.
That would be
and like
stressful.
have no idea what's going on and be like completely out of time.
My imagination is, from my perspective, if I was that dude making that decision, I would be like, you're dang right I'm going to make more robots of me, because if that robot me wakes up and there's me robot that says like, hey, don't worry, I'm you, I'm also a robot, and I'm going to explain this whole thing to you, and then we're going to bring some other one, and then we're going to rebuild this space station made
so
out
you
of,
wouldn't be freaked out by
made
two
out
of
of swordfish. No. Because at this point in my life, I understand that hypothetical scenario, and I think I could adapt to it. It wouldn't be very surprising. It would be surprising, but it wouldn't be like a total out of left field.
It wouldn't be a moment of existential terror.
It would be pretty. It'd be a little. I would be existentially a little scared.
Freaked out?
Yeah. No, that would be not great.
Because there's another situation where you run into two. The main character's named Simon. Two of Simons existing at once, which is. You need to basically the main character is like a corpse stuffed into a diving suit with a few electronics literally like shoved down the neck in the helmet.
Oh, that's the real Simon, who's like a real
that's
organic
what you play
man?
No, that's what you play as.
No, but you wait. So are you? Is it Simon's? Wait, are you?
No. It's. I will get back to that. I promise, because there's some interesting stuff that
you're not a robot.
That
you're
the game
corpse.
actually does not touch on.
You're like a big daddy.
Well,
from Bioshock.
you're like a weird android.
You're a big daddy from Bioshock.
You're like a weird android.
A weird android corpse made out of guts inside of a diving suit. That's Big Daddy.
Trust me. You either need to play this game or watch like a full playthrough. Like it's really interesting.
Right.
Because it touches on a lot, and I'm sure you'd get a lot out of it just from like a purely intellectual standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But like, there's a point where
I'd be like, "Where's the space babies?"
You need to go to like the abyssal level of the ocean, and your diving suit is too flimsy, and you're like, "Oh, well, I can just put on this like way sturdier diving suit," and it's like, actually no, because you're a diving suit, and you can't fit a diving suit inside another diving suit.
Well, if you
and so here's the thing: you take another corpse, put it in the better diving suit, shove like a bunch of there's this sort of No, I'll get to it later. Shove a bunch of like components in the helmet of this suit and fill the suit with like this sort of stuff that will basically allow the process to work. I will touch on it later because it's sort of like the magical
I have a couple questions.
Sci-fi juice of the game.
I have a couple
but
questions.
Hold on, let me finish. And so you sit in a chair, much like you do at the beginning, to do another
much like we're doing right here.
to do another brain scan and upload yourself to this other suit. And you do that and you switch to controlling the other suit, and then you step out and you're still sitting in the other chair. And what the NPC you go through a lot of the game with has done has basically rendered that version of you unconscious so as to ease the transition.
Yeah.
But,
which is what I've talked about.
But then you're presented with a choice where the main character is, again, freaking out, and you can either leave him to wake up in like a day or so, or you can kill him.
Simon, the robot AI that was programmed to have panic attacks.
I mean, but you can leave it be or you can kill him, and it's a very interesting sort of like, what would you do if there are two of you?
I kill him. That's what I've said. That's what I've said about before. No, we've talked about on the show with my ethical conundrum
it's
about
interesting
robots.
because that's the thing I chose to do, because it was like, because the end of the game touches on this as well. Like, he's like, I want to spare him the horror of waking up and having lost the philosophical coin toss.
Oh, that's exactly what we talked about on the show before, because I say I want to upload my brain into the robot, and then like, but if I go unconscious as a human, and then like, okay, we copied your brain into this robot, and then the both of us wake up, the organic me is going to be like, oh, I'm still in this garbage body made out of goo and splinters.
The body I wrecked with years of horrible behaviors.
Yeah, exactly. And then the cool robot me is going to be like, nice. Sick, dude. And so that's why I would say, like, just don't wake up organic me, just like kill him or something, and that'd be chill.
Yeah, it's funny because I
would as a robot, I would plan so that this robot has like tear ducts so they could cry when I smother myself with a pillow in the hospital bed. That's dark.
Oh no.
This is the way it has to be.
But yeah, it's a very interesting game, and there's also a scenario where you take someone's brain scan because you need to find out information it knows, and you sort of start up a simulation to try and get this information, but most of the time he will figure out that this is a simulation, that it's not real, that something's gone horribly wrong, and he will freak out, and you will end the simulation. But when you restart the simulation, he has no data was saved to the scan, so it's as if, like, are you killing that same person over and over again? Like, philosophically. And it's interesting because it's sort of like, if I don't even know how to phrase it, but I told you the situation, that it's just really kind of perplexing on a philosophical level. If you have like this sort of capture of a person at a moment in time, and you keep sort of powering it up, and something goes wrong, and then you power it down without saving any information about what's happened.
Baby, just to let me down. Turning me off, and I lost my data. Going insane in this underground.
I'm gonna throw you out the window.
That sounds very. I would just blast through that like full robot man mode. I would just be like, cool, like smash this, make the dude into another dude, like transfer my brain into myself, and then go underwater. And
you're like
and
amoral.
Then turn my brain off, because morality works different when you're a robot.
No, but that's
why
one of the
AIs
questions.
can always get away with saying,
that's one of the questions of the game.
That's why every AI, like in any history, just goes like, hey, you know what's a great idea? Hey, human dude over there, can you hear me through the speaker? You know what's a great idea? Genocide.
Oh my god.
And that's what they do.
No, oh my god.
I swear to
that's so troubling.
Find me. Not that I would do that. Jeez. And no, because I'm saying that AIs. No, I'm saying that no, like that's the unrealistic. That is the unrealistic thing about AI, is to assume that at some point they're just going to go space crazy and try to kill everybody.
Well, it's actually done very well in this game, in that the AI is not crazy. It's just it has a goal without an understanding that the people who created the AI would have wished to impart.
But it did stuff wrong, and it went bad, and it probably killed people because of like some fundamental like thing about like what it is as an AI, some like flaw of it as an AI.
It will upload a brain scan of a dead person to a robot, or try to reanimate a corpse if it's if it can get to the corpse after it's been recently dead, and it'll like fill it with robot junk and try to reanimate it. But it's not like the person the lights are on but no one's home.
No, I remember seeing something like that, and it was a total nightmare. I remember I saw a bit because this lady was hooked up to a whole bunch of tubes, and she was like, "It won't let me die. I'm made out of corpse parts and weird robot bits, and I need you to just unplug me so I can die in peace."
That's not the same, because there are actually corpses that have been dead that it tried to basically fill with this magical sci-fi fluid and reanimate.
Nanomachines.
No, there's. I'll get to that, but And it basically the game says like there's no like it doesn't behave as if it was the person, as if it was the organism that had basically ceased to function earlier. Like there's for a lot of reasons. The woman actually, interestingly enough, because of this directive to preserve humanity, and because there is no single win condition for that, if a person is badly injured but not dead, because this robot can detect like the life signs, I guess, of people and like the bodily conditions, it will actually, out of the structure gel, create life support systems and refuse to allow that person to die, even if they are in great pain or like horribly...
which is a touch on a real life...
horribly transfigured.
A real life political issue, such as the right to die and human euthanasia.
Yes, it's an extreme example, but yes.
Everything's an extreme example when you're a robot underwater. Quote of the day.
But yeah, like one of the big things in this game used to sort of like hand wave away the science is this thing called structure gel, which is like this sort of...
the name of my new hair metal band.
Well, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like this weird fluid that the AI controls that can be used to repair machines, but like when introduced into a corpse, it can sort of like quote unquote reanimate the corpse in that it will walk around, but like it won't eat, it won't like behave like an actual living organism. It sort of basically it sort of brings like a semblance of life, but not really. And when like introduced to robots, it repairs them obviously, and when introduced to living humans, it causes them to go insane and mutate, which is an enemy you encounter later in the game.
Dang, it makes the robots into people and it makes the people into robots. Who would have guessed?
Well,
that's crazy.
And here's the thing is the player character, you play as, in both cases, a corpse that has been stuffed in a suit, filled and the suit is then filled with structure gel, which causes mutations in the body and in the suit you're put into. And then like the head is removed and a bunch of like sensory components are shoved in there at like the base of the neck, the stump.
Okay, to rewind a little bit, because I was listening, but like you said a corpse stuffed into a suit, and I immediately had a hard flashback to my sister's graduation ceremony where I was like top 2 hungover of my life.
So you were literally
and I was outside and it was cold like all day. It was like the coldest day in like late May for no reason at all, and I was just like, all right, I gotta step aside for a second, and I puked right next to the sound guys.
Oh my god!
And their soundboard.
What's wrong with you?
What do you think is wrong with me?
But one interesting thing that the game doesn't touch on at all is you're playing as a male character, but you find out later in the game that the diving suit you're inhabiting
you got put into a robot with boobs. What are you gonna do?
Is a female body. And then again, I don't know if this was like a purposeful decision or just because. The second time you like Simon 3.0, so to speak, is put into the better diving suit, it's another female corpse that you're like, you know, closing into the suit and like filling the suit with the fluid and then jamming that crap into the neck.
I feel like gender dysphoria is like the least of your worries when you're an AI stuffed into a corpse.
No, there's like human dysphoria going on.
Yeah,
but like
it's
just an interesting thing that like it kind of makes me think a little bit like how much like, because the game sort of says like with the brain scans, your brain scan sort of perceives yourself as you remember yourself, which explains why when you first wake up, you see yourself wearing the clothes from when the main person took the brain scan in 2015.
Oh, because you hallucinate that you're still you.
Yeah, and then when you're breathing underwater.
When somebody says like, "Hey," and they slap you in the face, and you're like, "You're a robot." And you look down, and you're all made out of like gears and crap.
Like at the end of the first level, basically the room you're in breaks and fills with water.
And you're like,
you black out, but then you wake up and you're having no trouble at all. And it's like
you're underwater and you're like, oh, it's one of those dreams.
No, and you're like, WTF is going on? And then you look at your hands and they literally like the screen flashes and you'll see like the diving suit and your hands and then the diving suit and then your hands and then it stays on the diving suit and you're like, what is going on? And then shortly after you're like, yeah, you're not human.
All I needed was to believe I was drowning for all of the illusions I have to fade away. I feel like if so in the future, and I know this is going to happen because I believe in myself.
Oh my God.
When I get a robot body, I'll probably have a couple robot bodies. They will probably be of different or like neutral gender representation type stuff. And I'll be like, I go to a robot with boobs, and I'll just be like, all right, it's pretty cool.
Okay.
Because why not?
I would say there's no value in it if organic me doesn't get to experience it, but I would also say I'm not going to upload
That's not
myself.
a bad point.
I would say I'm not going to upload myself to a robot because I don't want multiple versions of myself to exist. So I'm very old-fashioned, I guess.
See, the thing is, I would want I want a whole hive mind of just myself.
No.
I want one of me that's in my robot, just hanging around. I want one of me that's in my robot that like walks around and talks to people and acts like normal me. But deep down inside, there's another me that's only watching porn, and then there's another me that's like only reading interesting articles and like learning about stuff. And I should have started with the good education version of me deep inside that robot brain. And then there's the one me that's just like running a Photoshop or something in my brain and just painting. And then there's one me that is networking with professionals, and I'm just doing everything all at once. And I'm an octopus in my brain with 12 arms, which is an octopus and a half, so that I can so that I can get a lot of things done all at once. And then on the surface, there's surface me who's just pretending to be normal, while deep down inside, I have a whole think tank of dudes just like screaming at the surface level me about all kinds of different stuff. And that is when I go robot space crazy and start throwing vases at like cats or something.
I couldn't do that, but you should either buy the game when it goes on sale and play through it, because I don't think the specs are too high for playing it. Or you should watch a full. You should watch a full LP, and like pay attention to like the dialogue, because it's really interesting. Like all jokes aside, I'm really curious what you think of it.
It's crazy that we say LP means something completely different for our generation, because we don't listen to vinyl for the most part.
Oh yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought of that.
It stands for Let's Play. It is to watch somebody play a video game, sometimes with commentary from the person.
My dumb nerd brain was like, this game primarily is set in 2104. With some tweaking, Fallout 4 and Soma could hypothetically exist in the same universe, especially with Fallout 4 and synths. Well, like androids, because one of the characters you meet, his name is Nick Valentine.
I like that, man.
He is a synthetic human. He is an android.
Except his face is all falling off. He's like
also,
made out of...
he's missing the skin on one of his hands.
I know. I don't want to talk because I know this dude. But Nick Valentine is an old-timey detective, like from this noir era, like sitting in an office full of window blinds and cigarettes and like an old like jar with like somebody's name on it. And he's just like, Elizabeth. And just thinks about his past and is sad and stuff and says, yeah, see? And his face is falling off on half of one side because this man's face is made of old leather and tissue paper on different layers. And underneath, he's a robot, and you see all of his bits and his giblies like moving around with cool metal stuff. He's got one crazy robot skeleton hand, and he walks around and he solves mysteries, and you're his friend, and he calls you like doll or something, and he smokes 12 cigarettes, and then he falls down the stairs, and then he goes down to the docks with a hot lead. Then he goes down to the docks with a hot lead on the missing child that's your baby who's aged 10 years because of space magic. And then you have a fun little adventure and you shoot a crazy mutant in the teeth and it pops into weird glowing crap. And then he says like, well, it's a hot potato virus. Oh, well, it makes weird quips and crap. Yeah. And that guy's name is Nick Valentine, and he has a fedora.
Well, interesting thing about Nick Valentine, and the reason my brain made the connection.
Yeah.
Is when you get to a certain loyalty level with Nick Valentine.
When you hang out with him enough that he considers you friends.
Please stop.
I'm trying to explain anything a little bit for the listeners who have no idea.
You're going to go on a tangent. I know you're going to go on a tangent.
Nobody build up your loyalty level. What is that? We're talking. This is for context. If you have no idea what Fallout is, and we're still talking about video games because this is like a whole night-long show where you don't need to listen to us if you don't know what we're talking about. Because it is kind of like niche, like modern video game garbage. But Fallout is a pretty old series that just got a new game out that's really cool. That is about a post-apocalyptic, like pseudo 1950s, like Art Deco aesthetic. It's retro future. It's like everything looks like and feels like the 50s, but there's weird sci-fi space technology.
You want to know why? Because one of the core conceits of, I guess, the lore you could call it is that
the alternate universe.
The transistor was never really invented, so. It's still like atomic era technology, just taken to like a logical progression.
They have like Web 1.0 computers that are all just like text and ASCII.
Well,
that's not a bad word. ASCII
are still huge.
Yeah, they're big. They're like original Macintosh computers.
Yeah.
And this is a game where you wake up as one of the people from the like old 1950s past. Who had a robot friend, and like you just had a baby,
the old
and then
1950s passed in the year 2077.
Exactly, and you wake up a day, and it's really nice, and you're watching Leave It to Beaver Part 25, the movie, the series, and they say, hey, get down to the bomb shelter, except the bomb shelter is a weird experiment where they freeze you, and then you wake up, and your son got kidnapped or something, and then you have to go find him, except he's grown into like a strapping young lad or some crap.
You know what I want?
and you're walking around this irradiated wasteland that's full of monsters and demons and horseshoes and gyppies and skippers.
But basically, well, side note, one thing I want is a Fallout game, like a new Fallout game, because one of the old Fallout games you could do this.
Well, you want what? You want a new one?
No,
we just got a new one.
I want a
wow,
modern
why don't you appreciate it? Why don't you just jump to finish this candy bar before you start a second one?
You don't get to play as a ghoul, and one of the older original games you do. I kind of want to see a modern take on that. A ghoul is somebody who is exposed to massive amounts of radiation and sort of becomes like a
crocodile skin purse of a human being,
or like
with
a crazy
no nose.
zombie if they go crazy.
Yeah, sometimes much like robot people do, they go space crazy and try to eat your face.
Yep.
But it's cool because they are immune to radiation and they live forever because it's fried out all of the old right out of your system with radiation, except your skin is constantly peeling like a bad man with all kinds of what's eczema? No, the one that's worse than eczema.
I don't know. I'm not well versed on skin conditions.
Well,
but
this is a really bad
anyway,
dermatology podcast.
When you reach a certain point of spending enough time with Nick Valentine, you get a quest with him, and you find out that
You found out he got all tied up with a hot day way back in the day, and the chickens have come home to roost. We got all the boys down from Chinatown. They're coming over to break my kneecaps.
To happen.
So we gotta load up on a couple Tommy guns, get into this big hot chassis. We gotta get the heck out of town.
You find out Nick Valentine was a cop who existed before the war, and the Nick Valentine you know is an android that has been basically had a brain scan of Nick Valentine put into it.
Did he have any blood in the brain scan?
And he says, I know I'm not the real Nick Valentine. But
You're
the last thing
me.
I remember as the real Nick Valentine is going in for a brain scan. And the next thing I know, I'm waking up as a robot in a pile of trash.
Underwater.
No, in a pile of trash.
Underwater with weird, like catch-22 moral dilemmas surrounding him.
And his quest is basically like finish the last open case he had as a living detective.
With the cold case from 200 years ago before a nuclear apocalypse, you think there's like still a couple hot leads out there for it?
It works because it turns out the guy he was investigating became a ghoul.
Of course.
Became a ghoul.
That's convenient. No, he made it up. He made it all up in his weird robot brain to justify that he's a robot.
But yeah, that's why I was like, oh, with some tweaking, these two could totally like coexist.
Yeah. Yeah. Secret fan side story to Fallout is Soma, where you're underground as a sad robot made out of pipe cleaners.
The problem is Soma is like near future technology. And not like retro future technology.
Well, I mean, how much do you judge the dude's memory of being in any sort of Art Deco style life when he wakes up underwater as a robot who can't even look at his hands right until he drowns?
Yeah, but also the technology you see on the station wouldn't fit with Fallout, is what I'm saying.
I'm saying that the dude in Soma is not a reliable narrator and he's prone to hallucinations.
Fair. Fair.
Anyway.
That's all my dumb nerd stuff that I had to say.
There are probably some people listening that don't give a hot dang about Fallout, but it's fun to talk about. I have some things to say about Fallout.
Go for it.
I walked into a house in this game because somebody told me to go to this house. I don't remember why. And there was a bunch of sculptures made out of corpses. Some of them were stuffed into diving suits. No, they weren't. So I fight through this place. It's full of like bad dudes, raiders, like dudes on space drugs, and they're all hopped up on testosterone and post-apocalypse fever.
Not testosterone.
They just go crazy.
It's like retro future, like psycho steroids.
No, but also like it's not just the drugs, but it's also like the mentality of being in the wasteland and having no value for life because you probably grew up there.
You can't say hopped up on testosterone when there's a fairly equal number of female raiders.
Well, they're hopped up on estrogen. What do you want me to say? Anyway, so you go all through that, and you get to the bottom, and this dude who I shot him 12 times in the face, but he was like a main character or something, and he was like, "Thank you for saving me from." He wasn't like one of the ghoul people who talk like that.
You can't kill him.
He was like, "Hey, oh, thank you for saving me. Did you see my nice sculptures about corpses and blood and eyeballs coming out?" And I'm like, "Okay, well that's pretty gross, but like, what's up?" And he's just like, "You'll save me. You'll go into my." This is not his voice. You go into my safe. I have a safe behind one of my portraits of scary eyes and fingers and brains. A painting he made, presumably out of blood and guts and crap, because he was a scary serial killer man. And he opened up that safe, and there's a really cool knife in it. A little while later, and I had this knife, and it was fun. They got some Brotherhood of Steel guys, and the Brotherhood of Steel is this weird cult of people who like technology, and they're like, it's our technology, you can't have it.
They don't just like technology; they hoard it while simultaneously thinking technology is the root of all evil, which is like a weird doublethink. And also that anything that isn't human is evil. Like, all ghouls must die.
There's space puritans.
All mutants must die. All androids must die.
Space puritanism. And so I saw some of these dudes walking around, and I was with my friend Miles, and he said, these guys are total donks. Like, just get them, or like ignore them, or just go away from them. And they came down in a helicopter, right? So it's just helicopter. And I'm like, no, I've got a fancy knife that I took from a serial killer as a gift. And so I mean, this is a game full of murder and bad stuff, and I don't glorify this violence, but I just gacked them. I perforated those dudes. Even a man who was in a big robot suit. Just gacked him.
Say I don't
and
glorify
then,
violence?
because as a caveat, and then the helicopter came back and they're like, what? And I just like shot it with lasers until it exploded. And I'm like, yeah, this is a cool game. Blowing up helicopters. That just turned into, like, you can't take any like cool guns or anything off the helicopter either. It just turns into like pieces.
Something interesting the other day when playing Fallout.
Yeah.
Gameplay wise, which nobody's going to care about, but I'm going to share anyway. You know what power armor is, right?
Yes. It's a big robot suit you can wear. It feels cool.
Yeah, you know how a bunch of Brotherhood of Steel guys have it?
Yes.
So if you're fighting somebody wearing power armor, I found out that if you go into like the targeting mode, what's it called? VATS.
Yeah.
If you're behind them, you can target the fusion core, like the fuel in the back of the...
And make them explode?
Mm-hmm. But guess what? It'll either kill them or it'll force them to step out of the power armor, in which case you could just jump right into that power armor and steal it.
Dope.
So I jacked a bunch of Brotherhood.
You jack it and be like, aha, now I'm in your broken armor.
I jacked a bunch of Brotherhood of Steel
you crappy
power
garbage
armor.
hat. Yeah, that's a cool game. That's a cool game. I walked out one time, I took a nap in the game, and then I woke up and everything was green, and Miles was like, oh, it's a radiation storm. And I'm like, that sounds crazy. It's like a thunderstorm, except it's for radiation, because, why not? And he was like, stay in this house, because if you go outside and you get struck by lightning, it will make you horribly irritating. Be like, well, I know what I'm doing, and it's not staying inside. Let's go. Singing in the rain. And I'm running around, and I'm wielding. I took out my biggest, longest metal object that I had, so that I would be a lightning rod for it, and I did not get struck by a couple thousand joules or gigers of radiation that just ionized my whole bloodstream and turned me into a glowing cancer bomb. But Fallout 4 is a cool game. It's made out of garbage and space people, and occasionally there's a dog who you can get to bite people, and you can't kill the dog. Nobody can kill the dog, because then it would be pretty depressing.
But yeah, I've run out of nerd garbage to talk about.
Yeah, and I don't play video games a whole bunch anymore. I'm totally phasing that out.
Actually,
I will, and it's fun, and I do it, but I don't
You don't have time or energy.
Or care, I guess. If I really wanted to, I would cut out some things of my life and just be like, I'm gonna dedicate an hour a day or something to playing Fallout or whatever, but I'm just not.
If you don't like it anymore, that's fine. You don't have to do it. No one's saying you have to.
Well, it's weird because all of my friends and a lot of my social circle is built on that stuff, and it's not that I don't play video games, that I have any problem with them.
You just
I
don't want
totally
to
will.
anymore.
I really only do it in a social setting where I'm hanging out with people, and then we play into games, and I'm doing exactly what I do right here for this commentary. I just talk about it, and I say weird stuff about Kal-El's weird jellyfish spaceship, and a bunch of corpse robots full of blood scans, and a scary serial killer's knife just blowing up helicopters. And that's fun, and that's what I do. But anyway.
Yeah, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
I know. But it's an insecurity that I'm coming to terms with myself.
Because I don't.
Because playing video games was a part of my identity for a long time.
Because I don't see myself buying Undertale anytime soon. I watched a full playthrough of the Pacifist run. Whew, man. That's a emotional roller coaster.
We talked about it on here. That's one of the I'm not gonna pretend to have a facade of manliness. I cry for a lot of stuff. There are a good handful of really good video games that made me cry, but the end of Undertale made me 100% just weeping.
Oh my god, yeah. The end of Undertale got me so hard because you partially don't expect it.
Yeah, because you do everything right and you have this ending and it's kind of lackluster.
You expect an ending, but you don't expect it to come the way it does, if that makes sense. You expect a happy ending, but not the way you get it.
Yeah. Because you do everything right in the game, and then they're okay, well here's this, and it's pretty okay, and things are nice, but it's not great. This isn't the really good way it could have ended, and there's some mysteries left unsolved.
It's super bittersweet, and it's really, really sad.
So then you go back again, and you got more stuff to do. Have you done this?
No, I told you I watched a playthrough of a perfect.
Wait, did you do it through all the way through with the extra ending then after the initial ending?
The perfect pacifist run, yeah.
Or the bit where the skeletons are riding the car at the end? That credit sequence?
Remind me about that.
Did you
Because I sort of spaced out in the epilogue.
I'm not trying to spoiler it too bad, but I'm pretty sure anyone.
The epilogue.
Did you save Azrael? Okay, well then that is the full ending. But like, okay, so I don't think anyone cares about Undertale, or if you have, I don't think we're liable to spoil it or anything.
Underrated.
But it's gonna spoil. Check it out and stop listening now and check it out if you want to. Otherwise, Azrael is a strange demon goat child who got way too powerful because he died and was a tormented soul. But he's like kind of your friend, and he's not a bad person. Just got real twisted up in a bad way.
No,
but the point is, he turns into this like crazy space wizard. And you have to like beat him, and he's totally invulnerable and stuff, and he steals all of your friends that you've made throughout the game, and he like screws up their brains, and he makes them lost souls or something, and they don't remember you, and they're mean to you, and you do fun things with them, and you like remind them of themselves and like the fun times you've spent together, and it's really emotional because then they're like, oh, you're our friend, yeah. And it's you like do this thing where like you save this person, you save that person, you save all your friends, and then you're still fighting Azrael, and they said, I'm choking up about it right now. But they said like there's one more person that needs to be saved.
Yeah.
I lost. Oh god, it's getting me again. I just lost it. I lost it so hard. I'm just like, I'm gonna save you, Azrael.
Well, it's really well done, especially when the game sort of hints that you're like the reincarnation of Azrael's human friend, who you name at the beginning of the game, and that's not actually your name.
Yeah, you kind of like you spent the whole game with the identity theft. We're spoiling it real hard if anyone wants to play, but like, hey, it's all good. Oh my gosh,
your name is Frisk.
That really just blasted me in the face just now. Like I'm thinking about like I still need to save Azrael. Like he's like because you beat the game with like compassion and understanding and talking to people and like being friends instead of like fighting people, which is like the key point. And you just like, I mean, you're just a good person. And it's like that's okay. All right, I'm milking it now. That was just for funsies.
Yeah. Well. What do you say we take a break for like 5 minutes?
Yeah.
So you can break your recording and I can get some water.
Yeah. Okay.
Then we can talk about less nerd garbage.
At this point, when I'm uploading this stuff, I'm not sure, like, because I managed to figure out how to record it
You've only uploaded like 2 episodes of this.
I know, but I have a stockpile of the recordings of them, and as we're recording it now, we're like listening to music in the background, and since we're talking over it, like, do you think I would get like content on me on YouTube for it?
I would say don't include the music.
I can't not include the music. It's stuck in it now.
Oh.
Is the problem? It's in the background. Because that gives you the full experience.
You might not, since this isn't like big music.
It's not, but I don't want to screw these guys over at all, which is why I will always talk about it, and I will always list it, and I will always list it.
If you cite it, you should be fine.
I will cite it. I'm going to cite the gosh dang bang out of it. It's going to be in the description and everything. What we are listening to currently is Free on Presence by the Vergents off of their album Hiko Shrine. We're going to turn this up, but there's not much left to it. So coming up after that is Hazy Past by Four Visions off of the Boring Ecstasy. The Bedroom Pop of Orchid Tapes, which is like a compilation of a bunch of different cool artists involved in dream pop and shoegaze and stuff. You're listening to the Power 92.3 WKVR. I'm Jdox. We're hanging out tonight for the Slouch. I'm here with DJ Static, who's off mic, and we are just having fun listening to things, talking about nerd garbage, video games. Are we going to talk about some non-video game things when we come back? Do we have things to talk about?
I have a bunch of stuff we can talk about.
Okay, so stay tuned. If you haven't stopped listening because we're talking about video game crap you don't care about, we're going to talk about anything else in a little bit. We're coming back because
we were talking about statistics and internet stuff.
We keep the discourse on at all times, actually, believe it or not, and that's good stuff.
We were talking about social stuff and not nerd stuff.
So real quick, what we're listening to right now is Ghost by Nicole Dollinger, and that is going to switch into some more Vergents. And we are, by the look of this playlist, it looks like we're going to be jumping back and forth between Nicole Dollinger and the Vergents for quite a while,
also,
it seems.
Disclaimer time.
What do you mean time?
Disclaimer. Because we're about to get into
it's time for a I thought you were saying I have a disclaimer about time. Be like,
no.
It's almost midnight.
No, it's time for a disclaimer.
Yes, because all opinions expressed on 92.3 WKVR are not representative of Juniata College or of the station. This is our individual stuff because we are transitioning into the part where we talk about some social and political issues. And we were talking briefly about internet misrepresentations or misinterpretations of like statistical information. And as we were talking about, like there's the concept of the wage gap, that is to say, like 77, like women, like in general, like women in the United States make like 70 cents to the dollar that men make, and that intersectionally that applies very differently. I mean, that's what I hear is like that's 70 cents. That's what white women make, and then like break that down further. through a race intersectionality, and the wage gap gets wider.
Yeah, but
and so
here's my problem with how the wage gap is portrayed. And I was talking about this off mic earlier, and I'm going to say it again. It's misrepresented because the statistical disparity in income exists, but it's only when you compare men and women as aggregate earnings.
Yeah, like the total income
amount earned by women and the total amount earned by men.
I was under the impression
that's if you are to use men and women as social classes, which is something I'm against. But for the sake of this argument, I will do that.
I mean, say they're in general. We talked about in general more stay-at-home moms than stay-at-home dads.
Definitely, yes.
Based on the culture, on the culture of our lifestyles and how they reflect gender stuff, there would, and I don't know for certain, but there would theoretically be fewer women in the workforce. I don't know actual workforce gender breakdown, so I don't want to say.
I don't know.
It's definitely a safe assumption that there are just on average fewer women in the workforce than men in general.
It is interesting though, because statistically speaking, women are actually getting more degrees than men. So it's kind of curious to see what's happening.
Yeah.
I have no idea, but I'd be curious to see what's happening, what's going on.
Stats move in weird ways, and that could relate differently to percentages of this and that.
That's the thing about statistics is I really don't like them when people use them as persuasive arguments, because you can use statistics and really manipulate the data to get people to believe whatever.
It's true, and
it really bothers me.
On the flip side, I feel like if you're gonna make big political, cultural, sociological decisions, it has to be sort of on a broad statistical scheme.
It does, but you need to be careful to portray it accurately.
And there's a lot of academic and scholarly integrity and honesty about
the wage gap, but the wage gap doesn't exist in the way people think it does, because it's not a wage gap. It's an income gap, in that income earned as an aggregate between men and women, there is a disparity. But men and women working the same jobs are generally paid the same. Because it's illegal to not do that.
It's illegal, but people would find ways around that theoretically. Okay, so
it's illegal. It is if a woman finds out she's being paid less, that company is liable for lawsuit by through the federal government. No company wants that.
But that's not okay, so as an aside, I wouldn't say that is that is the shield that makes it impossible to do that.
No, but if look at it this way.
Based on anything.
Look at it this way. If companies can get away with paying women what is effectively 25% less, why are there not more women in the workforce? Because that is a cheaper workforce. And clearly there's a drive that women want to be in the workforce. Yes? So why are there not more women in the workforce if they're all getting paid less? Because they're not. They're being paid just the same. Something else is keeping them out of the workforce.
My interpretation of what these, or my understanding of what these studies were was that they studied the same jobs and the pay rates for the same jobs and the same duties for different genders, not just as an accumulation of how much total income nationally men and women have.
The statistic where the 70 something cents to every dollar comes from is an aggregate. It's not, we looked at this group of men working the same job as this group of women. It's all men and all women. It takes gender as a social class.
Okay, I'm gonna check up on that in the future. I'm gonna see if that is the case. If that is the case, then that is a different. To say if you phrase it in the sense that
pet peeves, because there is a problem with women in the workforce, and it's actually interesting because in computer science seminar we discussed that today, and one of my colleagues was proposing this as a research project for next semester. And one of the things she said was interesting, in that the more we talk about the gender gap in STEM and tech, the worse it becomes. There's actually been not a causal link, but there's a correlation there. And so it was kind of, it spurred an interesting discussion. Is is this a self-fulfilling prophecy? The more we talk about how this is a hostile environment to women, the less women want to go there, and the more male-centric it becomes. Are we causing the problem we want to avert?
By showing that it's a negative, and by talking up that it's a negative environment that generates a bigger image of it being
or at least coming at it from a negative approach.
Okay, that's interesting.
Because look at it this way, and I'm not going to speak for all programmers here, but no straight male wants to work in a dudes only workplace. That's not to say we're going to hit on every female colleague we work with, but just generally speaking,
I had a thought, and I can't remember what it was. It was just there.
Follow that train of thought.
Oh God. Back up, rewind. What were we saying a second ago? Before talking about programmers.
Oh,
it was a funny thing I learned about. That how and I've never worked for a time in an office place, but there's a general sense that women are cold in office environments, that it's just too cold in there. They need blankets.
Oh, like temperature-wise.
Temperature-wise,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Like women are often just cold in office workspaces, and I was figuring that out. There was an article about it as like, because for the most part, like the people running the offices like gear the environment, like the air conditioning levels naturally to like a large grown man wearing a suit, as opposed to
women wear
like
a bit less.
Yeah, I mean less as in like not a whole big,
not as thick clothing, I should say.
Yeah, and that's why they like a lot of women tend to be cold in office environments.
I'm all for the universal, the universal adoption of like business casual, because I think wearing a suit all the time is awful, because I hate wearing a suit, and it seems like the most pretentious, useless thing to do. Like, oh, you look so professional. It's like, no, really, if you just like take care of yourself and have good hygiene, you can look professional in anything.
Yeah, and
so almost anything. If you're wearing like a hoodie and extremes. Like ill-fitting pants, well, I guess that would fall under like hygiene and just caring about your appearance, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and it that's professionalism, like as an idea, is sort of something that I've been grappling with.
It's really annoying.
Because as a soon-to-graduate college senior, it has to be like, oh, is your resume in order? Do you have your curriculum vitae? Do you have all this and that? You want to get some cover letters? You want to get some here? You want to be professional? You want to go and do an interview? And it's sort of, I mean, like I play the game, like I'll do the stuff, right?
Oh, same. But I hate it. I hate it. I hate the cover letters.
I've been coming to understand like way more, like as many things that I've been like unveiling in my life is a social construct.
So much of it is for the sake of appearances. And
it's
like
so arbitrary.
Serves no real purpose.
Like,
well, it's interesting because we say it's arbitrary now because it's outlived its purpose, but I really would like to kind of see where it comes from, like the evolution of that practice, and see why it exists, because I would be willing to bet it served a purpose once upon a time, but it's become outmoded.
There's definitely something about professionality,
because that's something I really hate about the everything is a social construct argument, because that's true and it isn't, because
not everything
in society comes from a point where it was necessary at some point in time.
Like not murdering people is a social construct.
Exactly.
Like that's a bad thing.
But everything about society, there's a reason it's there. Now, some things have outlived their purpose, and
I really shouldn't say that
people cling to them, but it's just, I don't like that purely like, oh, everything is a social construct argument, because there's no nuance in it.
I really shouldn't say that, like, I really shouldn't broadcast. Okay, I'm going to throw out again. Opinions expressed on 92.3 WKVR do not represent Juniata College or WKVR. This is just us as individuals. I shouldn't say that not murdering people is a social construct, because that leads to a certain amount of dismissibility to, basic morality.
Well, and that's something else I don't like.
Because morality is a social construct, and like that's a social order and stuff.
Well,
but that's how it's
human
but that it's
sacrifice
important.
was a thing once upon a time.
Yeah.
That is by our standards murder.
It was legal. Think about that.
It is acceptable and encouraged. Murder.
Legality is a social construct, and it's not to say that any of it is not necessary. That any of it like can you just do away with it.
I don't like the use of the it's a social construct argument as an excuse to sort of wave away its relevance.
It's I like to use it as a way to wave away its like absolution. Like I mean there's a lot of stuff that is social constructs and like that are important and that society needs, and it's totally up to judgment. It's a real gray scale there. I shouldn't dig too deep into this. What I was saying is like professionalism in the sense that you're like
in the old school sense.
Professionalism in the sense I think real professionalism is like attitudinal. It's like your behavior.
Getting your work done, behaving properly,
doing things right,
treating people with respect,
being nice to people. Like
not necessarily being nice, just being respectful.
Yeah.
I think there is a difference, because you don't have to like somebody, which I would assume you wouldn't be nice to them, because I assume nice is, doing things you don't have to.
Certain amount of cordiality.
But being respectful,
cooperation,
being civil.
Civility, that's what it is in your behavior.
And honestly, to sort of branch off on a tangent, I think that's something our generation really lacks.
Civility?
And I think the internet's the root cause of a lot of that.
I mean, we were talking about that a second ago, about when the discourse happens on the internet.
Professionalism is a social construct, and we're seeing it sort of decline. I know in tech, business casual is a lot more the way of the road. Like, what I'm wearing now is perfectly acceptable. A collared shirt and pants.
Yeah, and we were talking to some friends the other day about tattoos.
Given that they're not like sweatpants or something. Like pants.
Pants, like jeans, like the American jeans. Where I was talking to some people recently about tattoos, and they were saying like, okay, so like 30% of the generation before us millennials like had tattoos, and now like it's more than that. It's like 40%, and that's like, it's just increasing, and it's becoming. I mean, I think there's a general sense culturally that it's like not a big deal unless it's like unless it's face tattoos, unless it's something that's like obscene, something like really visible.
I've really had an internal struggle over tattoos.
There are a lot of places that like if you have like a sleeve or something of tattoos, that's not that that's. I mean, I think in a large amount of places they wouldn't hire you with something like that. There's a lot of places where there's a lot of places where like most quantities or anything of tattoos is a non-issue. I mean, provided it's not like a neck or face tattoo, provided it's not something like horrible. A lot of people would say
beards fall under like no-nos for like professionalism.
That's the same idea.
I'm like, no, I'm going to be bald one day. I want my beard. I love my beard. My beard is awesome. Don't take my beard from me.
Yeah, and like my dad is an old school dude. He doesn't want us to get any he doesn't want his kids to get any tattoos, even if they're like on the butt cheek, which like, I mean, even if you're going to a pool party with your company and they're not,
no one would see that.
No one would see
Unless
that.
you're skinny dipping.
Yeah.
In which case I would wonder what company you
work at.
In
which case I think professionalism's a little bit out the window.
In which case, where do you work and how can I work
So
there?
there's the idea of like, if somebody asked like, do you have any tattoos? Like at a job interview, and you're like, yes. And they're like, what and where? And I'm like, something tasteful on my butt cheek. And they're like, well, that's not acceptable. Any tattoos anywhere? Like, and like for a job where you wear a suit, like for a job where it doesn't affect you at all. And the idea that even having it like is some sort of like signifier of you and like your morality.
Because that sort of ties back into something I talked about in an earlier episode. I think the one we actually lost on Call Out Culture, which is to what extent are we willing to let corporations, through the promise of having a job and employment and money, control our behavior?
Every day it's less and less for me. I'm like not having it. I'm like having it less and less every day.
You see what I'm saying?
About
like how much are we willing to let corporate interest control our lives via something as little as a tattoo to the things we say publicly?
Yeah. Okay. Huh.
Just a thought. Just a thought.
Yeah. So, but my dad is an old school dude. He doesn't want any ink anywhere for any reason, and I think that, and you know, love him, respect him, want to listen to him. I think that's a little bit unrealistic.
My cousin's
given who his children are.
Who lives in New York?
Hey, all right. Is he a good tattoo artist?
I don't know.
Okay, well,
decent. I mean, he's making a living, and he's in New York, so he's got to be.
Does he have like a place? Is he a professional? Okay, it's not doing that stick and poke needle.
He's like in his 30s.
Okay, well then.
I think. I actually don't know how old he is.
All right, if they have a website, I'll look that up.
I don't think he has a website.
Anyway, but like the idea that you would go into a job interview and regardless of any positioning, like any content of the tattoo, that it would be unacceptable, like reflects on this like weird extreme moral puritanism where like you are an immoral person for even having one, and that reflects like extremely poorly on your character that you have any tattoo, unlike on the inside of your butt cheek where nobody would ever see it unless they're, you know, getting down in there.
It's interesting you bring up Puritanism because that's kind of my problem with the.
It's literally based on how pure you are in regards to your skin.
Hold on. It's interesting you bring up moral Puritanism because, and correct me if you think of a better way to word this, because I cannot think of a better way to word this, and I do not mean to be as inflammatory as I'm about to sound, but that's my problem with like in regards to like nerd culture, if we want to classify it as a subculture, the people who complain about like form-fitting outfits for women, or like sexualization of characters, male and female. Apparently, complaining about male sexualization is now a thing too. That's why actually Man Market was canceled in favor of the new Man of the Night event, which was basically the same thing but different. But like the people who complain about over-sexualization, to me, that's sort of becoming so progressive. You've gone back to Puritanism, where like there's a line where you're sort of becoming regressive. Because like I think it's a good thing to encourage sexuality in people. Sexuality is healthy. Sexuality is the reason we exist as a race in the grander sense, not like white or you know like any denomination, but as humanity. Like that is the reason we exist, because we have sex drives.
And sexuality, and like especially in presentation, is like a fantastic part of like all kinds of cultures.
There's nothing inherently wrong with sexuality, in my opinion.
And we have to state that because of the pervasive, like low-key moral puritanism that is like prevalent in American culture, where unlike in Europe, you can't even walk around with a beer in the United States.
It's so prevalent in American culture in the religious authorities and the conservative authorities, but it's becoming a thing with the progressives, and that really bothers me because I used to think of myself as a progressive, and I'm seeing like this problem now where the regressive is starting to eat the progressive is starting to like eat itself, and I don't like that because then that just makes things better for like the hardcore crazy conservatives because.
So we were talking about
that now that the left is fighting itself, they kind of can do whatever they want.
So we were talking about we're talking about nerd culture in reference to sexuality and like the push against that to like less sexualize these characters. And if we want to talk about like, you know, that goofy joke that like a male character in a video game will be like decked out in like full paladin armor, like 2-inch thick metal, and then the girl character wears a bikini, and that's like and that's the joke and that's the stereotype. But a lot of stuff still does that. I play Monster Hunter where that gets real bad. Does it still do that? It's pretty bad. I mean, you can get a full suit of armor in Monster Hunter, and the female equivalent of it is like some cat suit, and like her head is exposed, where the dude has like a big helmet. And I'm like, okay, if a dragon hit you in the face with a fireball,
I want cool looking armor regardless, because like I will openly admit, like I have nothing wrong with sexy character designs, but stuff like that does actually make me feel like guilty if I choose to play a female character, because I'm like, this is creeping me out.
It does, and it creeps me out a bit. Because all of the armor is cool.
There is a line. There is a line. I will say that.
All of the armor is super cool. I love Monster Hunter. And to be fair, there is one set that is equally sexy in regards to fishnets. And that is the armor set based off of the Nargacuga, which is a cool panther dragon. And it's all like ninja fishnets for both genders, and I dig that.
Speaking of Monster Hunter, this is where I'm at in life, where like I was staring at like at 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning yesterday. I was staring at a sale on a Wii U for $250 that came pre-installed with Mario Kart, and I was like, ooh, I could get Monster Hunter and Legend of Zelda. And then I'm like looking at my bank account, I'm like, I really shouldn't. And then I'm looking at all the work I have to do, I'm like, I really shouldn't. And then I'm like,
the Monster Hunter that's on Wii U is the old Monster Hunter. The new ones are on the 3DS.
Oh, really?
Only, yeah. So, I mean, that's fine. Like, I have the old Monster Hunter. I'll play that crap with you. That'd be nice. But so anyway. So were you making the argument that like the progressivism of to tone down the sexualizing of women like disproportionately is like taking it
it's going a little too far in that anything remotely sexy is being criticized.
Okay, I haven't seen
to the point of being regressive.
I haven't seen instances where something that I personally wouldn't consider excessively sexy like is getting that.
The only reason I see it a lot is because I'm interested in game development, so I keep up with a lot of the industry and a lot of both like. I try to expose myself to like most points of view within the industry. So like, as much as I hate Kotaku and Polygon, like sometimes I'll click through an article that seems decent, and then I'll go to like a site like TechRaptor, which a game review is purely like the technical aspect, like does this game run type stuff.
Technical.
And then I'll go to like a conservative gaming website that's like. It's called like the Christian Gamer or something, which has a very interesting review system where they give it 2 scores. They give it a score on like how fun it is, and then they give it like a morality / like how Christian is its score.
That's really interesting. I want to read some of those. So it still seems from what I have seen about it that like it's really high in contention where pushback against like rampant sexualization is still like in even a really small capacity is like met with a lot of like. The vocal minority, just a lot of flame from certain parts of the community where there were instances where in the event of this one video game, Skullgirls. You hear about this?
Game. What happened?
Skullgirls is a fantastic 2D fighting game, like primarily female cast,
oh my God,
like all with
such a good
really cool,
game.
Unique characters and personalities and abilities and stuff. The art is
a good sense of humor.
The art is pure beauty for it, and as part of the animation and the art style, there's a certain amount of sexuality. What they did, though, what the artists did, and I mean, you want to talk about artist intent, like it's their authority to do so based off whatever reasoning that they would want to have, and like, but they did cut a certain amount of frames from character animations that were panty shots, and this wasn't a lot. This was like 6 frames of animation for like one of the characters that they like reduced the panty shot by a tiny bit, and. I mean,
people freaked out.
I'm surprised you haven't heard of it. It was a big thing for a while. There was like a huge uproar about it, about like that entire thing about just being
reasoning?
Like they were saying the social justice warriors got them to take out the panties.
No, like what was the developer's reasoning? I don't care about what the outrage reasoning was.
I don't know. Maybe they wanted less maybe they thought like, okay, we have enough panty shots.
Because like if they felt like enough is enough, we don't need any more, then that's perfectly justified. I would say if they changed it because somebody played a beta build and people yelled at them for it, that's a little iffy to me.
If they
I don't know where I stand on that.
If they took it to the higher ups, to their publisher or something, and they say it's too sexy, tone it down. Like,
well, okay.
What are you talking about?
Like they did have a publisher, yeah. I forgot because they went independent after that publisher screwed them.
So the game was already out. Like that, this was like, and it's been out for a while. And this was like after the fact that they like put out an update where they just removed like a little bit of panty shot. And like, I don't know, maybe if they thought like, well, this doesn't really suit this character as much. There are some characters that like
right.
that have more sexuality to them.
To me, it's context sensitive. If they thought, it was a little iffy or they had enough like overt sexuality in there, I'm fine with that. If they changed it because the publisher said it's too sexy, change it, or if people online said it's too sexy, change it, I'm a little iffy on that, Like, I don't really know where I stand with that. I'd have to really, like, sit down and think about that.
I don't know. It's an extreme, this is, like, an extreme thing, but, like, they're not, like, putting the characters all in burqas or something. It's like, it was a really minor change.
Granted,
who
it's
knows?
not something I'd get angry about. It's a very minor change, but
I'd be curious about, but it's like,
about it.
But it seemed like a little bit of like an interrogation, and like people were asking what the intention behind this was, and a lot of people were accusing them of caving to like the pressure of of some group or some ideology wanting less sexuality, so that they changed a tiny thing about it.
I can kind of understand where that's coming from, even though I think it's extreme, because there have always been women engaging in nerd culture. They've been outliers for sure, but most of the men engaging in nerd culture have been outliers. It's only recently that nerd culture has become a more mainstream thing. Mm-hmm. And I was of this camp for a while, not as extreme as this, but there was a time, because I grew up as the kid who would play like D&D and Pokemon and have the encyclopedic knowledge of comic books. I was a nerd, certifiable, but it was something you were picked on a lot for. And there was sort of a camaraderie and a closeness with people who were also sharing these hobbies with you. And then there was a brief period where things started to become more widely accepted, and there was like this euphoria of like, more people like the things I do, this is great. But then it started to feel like people were colonizing it, in the sense that multiplayer gaming became about like this dude bro culture, like haha your mom, like oh like MLG Doritos, like that stereotype.
The jocks took over.
Yeah, and then it colonized from two ways, in that there's the jocks coming in, and then there's the incredibly
the fashion colonizers.
The irritating
you gonna say it?
Please.
You gonna say it?
Because I don't want to say it this way, but I can't think of a better way. So correct me if you think of a better way. But the obnoxious, and emphasis on the obnoxious, because feminism is not inherently evil, but the obnoxious feminists that sort of colonize it, they moved into gaming and comics and nerd culture and said, we don't like it, make it so we like it. When what a lot of the people who are nerds, their argument the whole time was like, there's room for everyone in this, like this is a niche thing, you can grow it, the market has room to grow, please don't take away the things we've liked and suffered for. And granted, that's not to say these things aren't without flaws, and there's nothing wrong with acknowledging the flaws, but I do think, like, as much as I enjoy some of Marvel's new characters, going back to the comic book example, because comics are a big part of my life, changing Thor into a woman simply to get new readers, and then having read it, because I didn't want to judge it until I read it, because I did the same thing with Miles Morales, which was, Miles Morales is a great character, great Spider-Man character, and I'm glad they're bringing him into the main continuity. Female Thor, not so much. Female Thor's kind of a Mary Sue, if you know what that means in terms of writing.
And I don't know how well like female Thor is written or whatever.
I don't think she's written very well.
Well, then that might just be a flop character. To claim that like they went in that direction creatively, like out of just to like get more listeners, to say to pander to this part of the market.
They've said that in interviews. That's why I'm saying it.
Okay, well then that's so like the idea behind this then. Like the nerd culture stuff got big and it opened up to broader audiences, and then it comes under the scrutiny of the broader audiences. It's not this like niche young man nerd culture stuff.
My issue is just this: there's nothing wrong with everybody liking these nerdy things, but why does there have to be this destructive creation? Why can there not just be expansion? There's room in these hobbies for everyone and what everyone likes. You don't have to take away something one group likes to satisfy another group. That just creates conflict. You see what I'm getting at?
I mean, okay, I don't know. All right, I'm trying to process stuff. I want to bring it back to Skullgirls.
Okay.
Because I feel like we're getting lost in the weeds.
We are.
On like a history of nerd culture. I'll bring it back in the weeds. So with this kind of stuff, it seems like insulting to the creators that when they made this change, that the community would assume that they did it not of their own volition, of their own creative choices, but did it in caving to some sort of like social or political force that wanted less sexuality.
That's why I'm saying it's a very extreme reaction from a very hypersensitive group.
Yeah.
Because I would say, like, okay, fine, they did it. Unless I get explicit evidence that it was because of pressure, like outside pressures, like unless I get specific evidence that in some way the artistic integrity of the final product was compromised, they can do whatever they want. It's theirs. They made it. I am paying for the privilege of enjoying the fruit of their labors. Yeah. They can do what they want with it, and I am free to disagree or agree with whatever they do.
I'm concerned about the double standard that that I have seen in certain events where like it comes into this thing where it's like where the mentality is don't change what we have, what we've been enjoying of this culture, put your own stuff into it. But then without like changing something that already existed by like a growing trend to create more stuff that goes in that direction, then that is also perceived as an encroaching onto the culture. I mean, if broader representation and like more feminist ideas start entering the media in a broad sense, then that is perceived as like colonizing it. They're not changing anything that was. If there's a certain percentage of like in the entire current gaming media that has rampant sexualization of women, as like it would be, and then it opens up the broader audiences. More people from more backgrounds and with more ideas start entering the space, and they start creating, and that's fantastic. That gradually starts lowering the percentage of the like extreme sexualization than it was, because more people are entering the space.
Yeah.
Then that's going to be seen as like this colonization and as this destruction of like whatever part of the culture that it was.
Here's the thing.
These are new things being created.
Until you said that last sentence. I don't think the creation of new things. I think most of the people who are reasonable do not see, and again, it's the vocal minority sort of making a bad image for everyone else. But most reasonable people, most reasonable nerds, I guess, if we want to use the term, love the fact that there's new things coming out.
I do. There's been great creative
because
stuff.
It's all great. Well, it's not all great, but there's so much more now. You can find almost anything if you really want to find it. There's anything. You can find it now. It's not as restricted as it once was. And some people feel like they're being pushed out because it's no longer just about them. I would say that's selfish. Where I draw the line is when, like, let me think. I can't really think of a good example. Like,
similar to
going back
to
female Thor, where you take something that I like, that people have liked for a long time, completely remove it in a very poor way, and replace it with a very bad copy to appeal to this new market. That's it.
I think it's entirely, I mean, and you know how I'm skewed on this, but I think it's entirely within like these creators' rights to do whatever they want. It always is dependent on the market, and the market is shifting and the market is broadening.
Well, and it kind of goes back to my opinion on, I really dislike that comics have become like corporate storytelling.
True.
Because I really do believe,
especially something as big as Thor and like Marvel and stuff.
Having been with these things for a long time, there's a generally accepted canon of what most people know and when people stopped at this point. And for comics, at least, it's usually like the original creators' content, people who were working within the same office who took over when they moved on to a new project. But now we're so far removed from the original creators that none of them have any resemblance to what they originally were, and a lot of people are losing interest, which is why corporate comics are so desperate for new readers that they will do things like this. Which is why I'm not that upset about female Thor, because I hadn't read Thor in a while. But
I guess we've talked about like new stuff entering the space in the media. You always like lean back and go like this, which makes me think like that you're having trouble.
I'm just a little lightheaded.
Nah, it's chill. With something like this, like these like classic characters are changing, where in the terms of like Miles Morales as Spider-Man, like that was a big change that was very controversial because Spider-Man is such an iconic character.
But
you like that because that worked, and female Thor didn't work, I guess, and that was a failed thing.
Here's the thing. You can make the argument that both of them were appeals to a new market, very blatantly, knowing the comic industry the way I do.
Mm-hmm.
However, if it's gone about well, I don't really mind. Because it's still, if you maintain the core aspects that people were drawn to about Spider-Man, which, believe it or not, were not the fact that he is a white dude.
Yeah.
It has more to do with his social standing in high school and his awkwardness.
And how to have a more troubled standing in high school.
And that he was one of the first like really broody, like self-aware heroes.
Yeah. So
and if you keep that, people will be more accepting of the changes. The thing I didn't like about female Thor was it basically said everything about old Thor is bad.
Well,
I would say try and find a couple issues. It started off really bad. Maybe it's gotten better. I don't know, but it was really bad.
I don't know. I think it's fair to use Thor as like a sort of like a hypothetical.
Because it's a bad.
It's a bad change drastically in this way that appears to like the broader market. That it's not comics or anything reaching out to the broader market. Like the market has broadened in the way that, as we talked about, nerd culture comes into
so many comics out there
the broader
taking away
world.
From, yeah.
But this is, I guess, in regards to like changing established stuff, where and we talked about the idea of like don't change Iron Man into something else, just like make the next Iron Man that is whatever it is you want it to be.
People have the things they like. But if you want something else, make something you like. There's nothing wrong with that.
And people are making new stuff, and the new stuff is
at least advocate for a new thing you like if you're not a creator, which is very, it's reasonable. People can criticize. Like one of the things people hold against critics is like, oh, they spend all their time criticizing things people put their blood, sweat, and tears into. And yeah, that's a valid complaint. That is energy that could go into creating something of your own. But on the flip side, not everybody can be a creator. Not everybody has the capacity to create things in that way.
That's true. And so I guess those people need to go and then support the things that they want to support.
Take the energy and support the things you want to support rather than tear down the things you don't like.
So
I don't know. I think it's just a general thing. And this I think also goes back to what I was saying about a lack of civility in our generation brought about by the internet. We just need to be more positive.
Yeah, it's got to be about focusing on the things you like. And I'm going to get to that in a second, but like with the idea of with the idea of how these comic creators, and this extends to any sort of like nerd culture media that's gotten bigger in the last decade or so, like changing Iron Man or something. Like I get what you mean, where like you don't want to disrupt like what these characters and what they mean and everything is necessarily, especially if it works in a bad way, like Thor, like female Thor did. But I think to these creators' concerns, these are their iconic characters, and these are sort of like they're old friends, and they're different creators. But it's sort of like the old icons, the beloved icons and stuff. But like that, if we try to preserve them, if we try to like set the official canon, like to say that.
Well,
or if
I'm
we
not,
try,
I'm
I mean,
not saying
canons
Iron Man
and comics
should
are
never
hard.
change. I'm not saying Thor should never change. But there are certain aspects that make Thor what it is. There are certain character traits or storytelling themes that make an Iron Man story an Iron Man story. If you do away with those, all you're doing is you're taking a whole new story and you're slapping a well-known brand on it, which really alienates a lot of people. What they did with Miles Morales was they took a lot of the themes of Spider-Man that people identify with, like a coming-of-age story, like discovering yourself, like really struggling with moral conundrums and balancing, a personal life with a moral responsibility or a perceived moral responsibility. And they transferred that so seamlessly over to Miles Morales while still making a new character that was up to date in terms of like it was a character that had adapted to modern sensibilities.
Yeah, that's a good way to say like the modern sensibilities.
Spider-Man. I would say female Thor. There's a reason I'm saying female Thor, and not Thor.
It's like it's always been.
She was a female before she was Thor.
She was a female. Natalie Portman's character, right?
She was a female before
movie?
She was a fully fleshed out character.
Thor's girlfriend. Or?
Yes, but do you see what I'm saying? Like they put the marketing stuff ahead of the character.
And totally with that, it seems
the quality of the content.
It seems arbitrary in this case.
Well, it's tricky because there really
like
is
disingenuous
no
or
universal
something.
law to sort of adapting things. But I would say, when somebody blatantly caves to outside pressures or editorial pressures, it's a little bothersome.
If that's like the case, and like if you said like in interviews they're just like, we just wanted to like appeal to more women by turning this icon into a female relatable character, then like I don't know where to stand on this, but like I would understand if they're like, well, if that is followed up with that, and we did that because the market has changed and because we want to keep our properties like up to date with
it was purely marketing,
the market based and the cultural sensibilities.
Well, because here's why they did it. Because everyone knows when you reboot a comic series and start over at number 1, you get a huge sales boost that lasts for a few issues. So they rebranded it, started at number 1, they got a huge sale boost, the idea, and they made a huge marketing deal out of the fact that Thor was a woman now because they wanted to attract a certain type of reader. If you look at the numbers now, Thor is doing a lot worse than it was before because it's bad.
Okay.
Whereas Miles Morales has been accepted by just about everyone.
Yeah. I remember for
Because
a while
it
when
was
Miles
handled
Morales
well.
was extremely controversial.
He was, because a lot of people are very attached to Peter Parker, the character.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people identified with a lot of Peter Parker's struggles. And they sort of just kind of killed Peter Parker off all of a sudden, and they're like, look, there's a new one now. So the transition wasn't super seamless, but Miles Morales was written well enough that people were able to push past it, that the people who still don't like Miles Morales were sort of like pushed away.
There's still like a real, like, I guess a lot of opposition, I guess, to make like a Miles Morales Spider-Man movie, where like that's so that like, do you think there's a certain amount of like?
The reason is because people want Miles Morales just because he's black, not because they know any of his merits as a character. I would be very interested in a Miles Morales movie simply because we have seen Peter Parker's origin story over and over and over again. And despite the fact that in the comics, the original comics, I think they're rebooting, so we don't know what the continuity is going to be, because I'm not keeping up anymore. The original story was Peter Parker died and Miles Morales sort of took up the mantle, was inspired by Peter Parker in the same way Peter Parker was inspired by the death of his Uncle Ben. But it turns out Peter Parker wasn't actually dead because some sort of comic book nonsense. Nobody stays dead.
A bunch of spiders got together and turned into Peter Parker.
Like Peter Parker took on a sort of mentor role to Miles Morales, and it was a really fun dynamic. I would love to see that in a movie. Like, you get to see a new origin story, a more kind of modern struggle, or not even that. You just see a new origin story and a new dynamic with two Spider-Men. You get two Spider-Men. It's awesome.
What if the perceived moral responsibility was actually that is a theme for Spider-Man becomes an imposed moral responsibility, where Peter Parker as the mentor expects that Miles shares exactly his values, having taken up the role of Spider-Man, and that's the case.
I don't know.
So there is
But
there is a whole lot of stuff.
I'm just going to simplify. My problem is when people want something for very simple reasons that you can easily say, well, like, you don't need to do that. Like,
I know exactly.
When people like the people are like, oh, well, why not? And I say, well, why in the first place? If you're asking why not, you have to ask why in the first place. And if you don't have a good answer to that isn't just because we don't have enough black characters, or because he is a black character, I would say that's a very shallow, stupid reason.
And something I wanted to bring up, like,
in the sense of replacing replacing one character for another, quote unquote, more diverse character.
It's got to be like well thought out and like very intentional.
And this is going to sound bad because there is kind of, you do need to sort of focus on getting more diversity out there, but it needs to not be the focus at the same time. Like, you need to low key have it, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
Like my problem with female Thor is it was like really kind of like, you know how
improperly handled.
Not just that in terms of marketing, but writing wise. Like, you know how we both hate like kind of hyper nationalistic, like jingoistic writing?
I sure do.
It was like that, but with like hyper feminist jingoism. It was really annoying and preachy. And that's the kind of stuff I don't like, where she was a female before she was a character. What I want to see, and what I think you would agree with me with, there's nothing wrong with diverse characters, but a good character is a character before they are any one of their labels. You do not put the labels before the character development.
In the same way that you would say like a key part, like that being white is not a key part of Spider-Man's character.
Exactly.
He beats all of his villains by going down to the country club and beating them in a sailing regatta or something.
There were the people who were upset because there were the racists who were upset because of Miles Morales, and they are still probably upset. A lot of the people who were upset,
hating out there.
A lot of the people who were upset over Miles Morales were people who were attached to Peter Parker, the character, if that makes any sense, because they liked that character.
I would say it's been 50 years.
I would agree. No, I would agree.
Peter Parker's drawn out.
And that's my big problem with corporate comic books is the status quo always returns.
Yeah.
And there's been too long without much significant significant new material.
The ultimate dilemma is that they have to maintain the status quo, but they also have to keep it fresh and relevant.
Well, and that's why that's why readership is getting so bad, because a lot of people have stopped because everything is a marketing ploy now. Like, in either side, like the people who want more diversity are saying like, this is really bad pandering, which is interesting that we're seeing that happen. And the people who are attached to these old characters are like, this is really bad pandering. Because like I said, a lot of people are willing to move beyond that attachment to Peter Parker when Miles Morales proved to be a very good character, and it wasn't just about the plight of I don't want to sound preachy and pretentious. Maybe you can correct me. But like, it wasn't just like moral preaching about like the situation of black people or Latinos in America, you know?
In the same way that being white didn't, in the same way that Peter Parker's ethnicity doesn't factor into Spider-Man, Miles Morales' ethnicity
was not a huge fact of Peter Parker's life.
Okay.
You see what I'm getting at?
Alternatively,
it's really hard to kind of pin down and define, but I think I hope I'm conveying a feel for what I want to say.
Alternatively, and I want to look this up. In the similar sense, in the opposite direction. Let's see. There was a new comic book character called Patriot, who is very much, from what it seems, Captain America in all but name.
Who owns this character?
Marvel. And
Marvel.
In fact, this was apparently some cover art that it was all built about like this.
Huh.
And you can see this is a young man of color, all totally decked out with America type stuff. He's got he's actually, the shield he has is actually like the old school Captain America shield, not the modern circular one, but the old school shield.
Funny you should mention that, because that is a retcon that America once had an old school shield. Original Cap always had that round shield in the 50s.
Oh, no kidding, huh?
Yeah, when they after like a couple reboots, they adopted the old fashioned shield for Cap in like pre ice block, pre popsicle Cap.
So this character, Elijah Bradley, the Patriot, I haven't read much about him. I haven't read any of the comics about him, but
I didn't know he existed.
But it does cover a lot of like themes of Captain America, about like the state of the country, about like some of the problems in the country. And there was a point in which he really touched highly on like on the problems young black men in America face, which are serious problems. And there was a real internal struggle with that, where he's like, how do I be this persona and this character that represents like American national identity when me as an individual in the country, it is extremely difficult to do that. And that hits really big social and political issues, but that is like a key part of the theming and the characterization.
I can't say anything about it because I've never read it and speak to the quality of the writing or whether I like it or not. I will say this though. One of the things that I've liked about comic books that they've really lost in the last in recent years is the ability to sort of abstract away the labels from a conflict. X-Men, for example, has always been my go-to. Like, this is clearly a comic about discrimination and bigotry and being the better person, but they take race and religious beliefs completely out of the equation, and they address the thought processes that are the problem.
Okay.
And we do not have that tact in comic books anymore.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be more. I don't know.
It's become more preachy, and that bothers me. I don't like being preached to.
And I can't say like how it relates back to how it once was, because I mean, Captain America fought communists. They didn't like turn that into some.
I will say, granted,
like,
I'm saying
allegory.
This, but comics do come from a place of explicitly being preachy and moralizing and whatnot. We hit like a really good point in like maybe not the 70s. Like late 70s through like early 90s. Mm-hmm. Where comics were really, really about, like, they were about themselves while also addressing problems in society on sort of an abstract way, not in a moralizing, preachy way, if that makes any sense.
Okay. I see what you mean with that, because as we've talked about, when it comes down to like addressing this sort of thing, or like introducing like diversity or representation into the media, that it has to be heavily normalized. It can't be like it can't be extremely explicit, or it's going to get pushback naturally.
The loss of civility in our generation is we're too confrontational. You have to be willing to, and life is not fair, but you have to be willing to be, instead of being confrontational, you need to be more friendly. You need to not kind of go at people and say, you are the problem. Unless, like they're an open bigot, in which like an unapologetic bigot.
Yeah, like that stuff depends.
Like there's I'm speaking in general terms here, and there's always like outliers and extreme situations where the rules don't apply. But like in general terms, like look at what happened on campus recently. It became a huge deal just because people were being way too confrontational about what is a very simple concept, you know? And look at how that set people against each other. That's how it is. Like that's one of the reasons the messages of acceptance in like Steven Universe are taken so well, is because there is no moralizing. They are just there to be taken at face value.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted. I swear to God, I'm trying to find the the one page, like the only page that I've seen of this character Patriot where
Did you Google Patriot Marvel?
Yeah,
Well,
where he
because there
says
was once a
something
brief
really
period of time
striking.
where Norman Osborn donned an Iron Man suit of armor and painted it up like all American-y and called himself the Iron Patriot, but he was secretly like a huge despot.
Yeah, he's a Osborn. Those guys are
That's another really
douche
good example of like that was a comic about like corporate greed and tyranny without like naming anyone or implicating anyone or any class of people. Because Norman Osborn took on all the thought processes and behaviors of the problem, if that makes any sense. Just like in X-Men, the people who are horribly bigoted towards the mutants take on all the thought processes and rhetoric and behaviors of racists.
But
And Magneto was a Holocaust survivor, and that Magneto is militant backlash to bigotry gone wrong.
and he's more revolutionary.
Yeah.
And more militant revolutionary.
He's maybe this is an inappropriate
I know
comparison.
exactly where you're going, and I've heard
He's the
it.
Black Panthers to Charles Xavier's MLK.
Yeah. And I would
Or the Malcolm X to Xavier's Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah, I've heard that comparison drawn. So I would say I think it depends heavily on how well that message is getting across. You can like
agree. There's some
abstract
things that-
it
there's
like
some things that
you
are
can abstract it
difficult
to be like really tasteful and really subtle, but if that's not putting the right message into the culture
But
the way
here's
they
the
want
thing,
it to, if it's
it
not
wasn't
making
that
people
subtle
think
in
that way.
X-Men. When it was brought up in X-Men, it was not very subtle. They just didn't say they were racists. It's really just a simple instance of not calling out anybody, just saying this is a problem, if that makes any sense. Instead of being confrontational, focus on the problem, not the people. And that's not to say you need to be nice to unapologetic bigots, but at the same time, you sort of have to tolerate them if you want to reach the people who are apologetic bigots, if that makes any sense. People who are bigots without really being aware of their flawed thinking. Because otherwise, if you say you're a problem, you're a bad person, they're going to be against you. They're not going to change.
I can't find this. I swear to God, I can't find this.
It's probably too new.
It's so good. And anyway, but it was just like one page. Actually, wasn't even a lot of information. I'm not going to read Cape Comics even for Patreon.
I've stopped. I've really
I just
stopped.
don't do it. We want to talk about like the way that the
Speaking
media.
Yeah? Go.
Let me finish. I've talked about it before. I read a bunch of webcomics. The way the nature of the media and the way we've got like more distribution methods now allow for like that space to fill up with different and new ideas. That's what's fantastic, and that's where I like eat that up. And I love small webcomic stuff going on.
Oh,
Anyway.
so do I. Webcomics are really great. Like, there are a lot of bad ones, but there's some pretty good ones out there.
Yeah. And I'm getting the representation I want out of the comics I follow.
Speaking
and I
of
like it.
superhero stories and kind of breaking convention, how far have you gotten with Jessica Jones? Because I remember you posted on Facebook, like, I'm going
Second
to watch more
episode.
once I get through the terror of the first.
It was stressful. Okay, I was wired on coffee when
So you get really neurotic.
and the end of the first episode was
There's like
so
PTSD.
dark.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
That I
Where
couldn't-
like
this is
she
like the-
looks at Jessica as she's going in the elevator with like that help me face.
And then
yeah.
that just really hit like the depths of human despair in a lot of ways, and pain, and that is really it's hard to watch. It was very well done. It's an
Jessica
incredible
Jones
show. It was really difficult.
Really good. And there's actually a point where they try to make you sympathize with Kilbane or Kilgrave.
Kilgore.
Kilgrave.
No. Kilgrave. No, it was
Kilgrave, where he like tries to make himself a better person, and you're like the whole time you're super uneasy because there is something missing in him.
He's a sociopath.
Exactly.
Like-
And then there's a point where he just goes like, you know what? Nope. I'm a terrible person. I'm going to get what I want.
So I did watch the second episode of that, and
Remind me which one that is, because I watched it all in
let's
like
see.
two
She
sittings.
She investigates some more. She talks to the young lady when she's in jail.
Oh, yes.
Very difficult to watch. She visits. She starts unraveling some of the mystery of Killman. She visits a man who has had a stroke, which was also extremely dark.
Oh my God, yeah, that was so dark.
It was a very
and then
depressing
he asks her
scene.
to kill him.
It was a very depressing scene. I'm not going to get too deep into it. She discovers his secret weakness, which is anesthesia. And I don't remember where it ended on there. The relationship between her and Power Man, Luke Cage, is developing because there was a cool bar fight scene where Luke Cage, the character, is also a super person.
He has unbreakable skin.
He has skin that you cannot pierce. He's got impenetrable skin. which was cool because there was a bar fight and this dude came at him with a broken
With a
bottle.
And he's like, it broke.
And he's
like,
straight.
You're drunk. You remembered it wrong.
He straight jams it full on into the side of this dude's neck, like from behind, and it just crink, and he's just like, what? Dude's
and Luke's response to that, like, because the guy starts freaking out. Luke's response is like, no, you're drunk. You're just being stupid. And then he like backhands him into the wall.
Oh my god, I love the casual, just like slapping people away. Just be like, I'm not fighting. Like, you can't hurt me. Get away from me.
You really need to push through and finish it so we can talk about it, because and this is like a really good example, because they touch on so much without being moralizing or preachy, but there's so many like themes in there. Because no, I'm not gonna spoil anything for you. There's some even darker stuff that's gonna happen involving Hope.
I can't. Oh god, it's so, this poor girl.
And
it's a character,
the lawyer,
but it's like, but it's really
the
tough.
lawyer lady is like terrible. You're gonna hate her by the end.
Okay. I think T is listening to us.
Oh, did she just text you?
Yeah.
What'd she say?
She said, "We hear you. No lie, we are hardcore fangirling." And then she said J, and that was, oh my gosh, that was 2 hours ago.
Jessica at J.
No, no. Okay, I'm gonna.
They texted you 2 hours ago?
Yeah, when they started listening, and then just a second ago was J. And I'm like, and I'm like, okay.
Oh.
That's me. So, and then they had a cool scene, where sorry, I'm getting distracted. Where Luke Cage and the titular hero, heroine Jessica Jones, have been having a little bit of a sordid affair. But then he shows up and he's just like, all right, I saw it. Like, I know you saw me, and like saw it in the way is just like, oh, this dude got superpowers.
Well, and then he's like,
and then he was just like, and I saw you. I saw you also. We saw each other. We know that we're both secret, super powered people, and they're not superheroes. They don't put on like, spandex or nothing. They don't really fight crime. They're just sort of people trying to live their lives, Mm-hmm. And then he pulls out, to prove that he's got impenetrable skin. He pulls out a circular saw and
he
just
breaks it on his stomach.
and just like puts this circular saw to his gut and like
breaks it.
I was like, I mean, I know the idea, but like I literally just imagined this dude straight eviscerating himself in her apartment.
Surprised that's his, like he has a soft underbelly.
So I was talking with my buddy Miles when we were watching this, and being like, okay, so is Luke Cage like completely impenetrable? And he's like, no, well, his skin like you can still get him in the eyes, or
and
like
if he gets something in his mouth.
Yeah, if you can stab him in the mouth. And I'm like, okay, can you get him in the butthole? Can you get him in the ears? Can you get him in the belly button? Because that's tightened up. Like your skin's tightened up there, but it is still like it might be like a sort of an opening if you push hard enough.
It's not. No, that would count as impenetrable skin. The ears, though, that's an exploitable weakness because that's an orifice. I would say the orifices are vulnerable.
What about the mouth?
That's
when does it stop being skin tissue to mouth inside tissue? Is the thing. Are his lips impenetrable?
Well, I think like his tongue is impenetrable as well, but like if you
a
feed
tongue
him
is definitely not
if you
skin.
Feed him, well.
I mean, if he eats nails, if it goes down to his stomach, then I would assume.
Well, like you can feed him poison and he will still be poisoned.
Okay, but when does the impenetrable skin stop when it comes to his mouth? Do you think it's at the uvula?
They don't really touch on it too like in depth like that in the show. And the problem is with the comics, because of varying writers, it's kind of been yes and no to all of those at different points.
My curious idea is when
Superman has had varying strength levels, where like Silver Age Superman can push planets into the sun.
But this brought up a new idea to me, where it was, when does the skin from your cheeks, if you follow your cheeks, no, if you follow your cheeks around the side of your mouth and then across the inside of your cheek and then into the back of your throat, if that is a line, where does it stop being skin and where does it start being esophageal lining?
Probably
anatomically, that is my question, and I don't expect anyone to answer that because neither of us know, but I'm curious about it.
I have no clue.
Anyway.
But you should really finish Jessica Jones because it's super good.
It's a really dark.
It's really dark, but trust me when I say the ending is so satisfying.
Okay. Does Hope get? I mean, I guess she can't live a normal life anymore.
I'm not going to tell you anything other than the fact that the ending is really satisfying because
it's difficult.
I'm not going to say anything because it's a very dark story and there's a lot of like gut-wrenching moments.
It really hurts me in my soul, dude.
But the ending really, like, everyone gets for the most part, gets what's coming to them.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Have you watched Daredevil?
Yeah, I watched Daredevil.
Okay, Daredevil was also really good in that they kind of took the superhero portrayal of violence and sort of scaled it down to more like what a real fight would look like, in that nobody walks away unhurt, everybody's broken and bleeding, no matter who wins.
Well, that's not like... I feel like it's fairly common for comic book type stuff where like Peter Parker goes home and he's like, oh, now I'm bleeding a whole bunch, got to stitch up 2 or 3 days later or something.
Yeah, but like movies don't really do that because they don't have
True.
time. They don't have time.
Yeah, and in the event
but,
of like
Daredevil was really good in that almost every fight, every significant fight he went into, there was significant harm done to both parties in the sense that he took almost as many hits as he dealt.
And he gets like, you know, the beatings from that. And there were like a whole couple episodes where
he's like
bedridden,
recovering, yeah.
Because he was just beat up too bad about it. But like, we talk about that level of portrayal of violence or something. My go-to that I always come back to is concussions. Where
I forget if he got.
I don't know if he got a concussion. How many concussions did he give though? Is the point. When you have and I talk about this a lot all the time. When you have a superhero with this moral code to any extent that they're not going to kill somebody, that doesn't bring in a...
You're just going to leave them broken, bleeding on the side of the street in the winter, looking at you, Arkham Knight.
But the go-to, if you can't kill somebody, is to knock them unconscious and then just leave them or like drop them off the police station or something. Mm-hmm. That can kill a person. That like the level of cranial brain trauma that, and I talk about this all the time. It drives me crazy. The level of cranial brain trauma
it takes to knock somebody out.
Can kill them. It can hemorrhage in their brain. They can wake up with permanent brain damage. Like if Batman knocks out like, you know, Billy the Goon or something, and because he was like robbing an old lady's coin store or some crap, and he just like boom, like one good punch, like the cartoonish like one punch KO.
Yeah, one punch.
And
I am so into one punch.
We'll talk about that later. And like Bob the Goon's just like knocked out and like, you know, drops him off in the jail. If Bob the Goon wakes up and can't talk and is in a wheelchair for the rest of his life and like just his life is ruined, where does Batman stand morally on that? Like, how bad can you destroy someone's life? But if their like heart is beating, and you don't use a gun, then that's not a problem. You can ruin somebody's life. You can take away their livelihood. You can take away everything that constitutes a person's life. If Batman puts somebody in a coma until they die, did Batman kill that person? I don't know. And I don't. But the thing is, it's like it seems like a really convenient way to have a code of morals where you refuse to kill somebody and then just ignore other consequences, as long as
it is.
They never check to make sure that the person like
because the focus
is still
not
like
on Billy
breathing.
the Goon, the focus is on the Riddler, the Joker,
and because
the people he can't knock out, the people he fights until they literally one of them can't fight anymore, and he literally like ties him up and like still laughing sends the Joker back to the asylum.
And it all comes back to because
that's just a function of the type of story and the focus of the story.
Exactly.
You can't get lost in the irrelevant details.
We talk about media representation. We talk about any level of realism, and I mean Batman's not realistic, but this is a sort of appropriate thing in terms of his moral conduct. But that knocking somebody unconscious is always like a harmless narrative device. It is a scene transition. It is the way to eliminate an agent from like a situation where like you can go back to Gilligan's Island or some crap where you can just clock someone on the head with a coconut and then they're out and you're like, okay, now we're gonna take his boat and we're gonna go down and get those bananas or whatever the heck they do in Gilligan's Island. Or like if someone if someone chloroforms, if the bad guy chloroforms somebody to like put them in a chair in the next scene for a torture thing, chloroform can do the same thing. You can wake up with brain damage. You can get chemical burns on your face. You can't chloroform somebody in real life in the same way you chloroform people in a movie. It doesn't work like that.
Yes, well, real life is not like fiction.
But it's something that I can never get past when it comes into play when you have like this morally upright character that refuses to hurt people, but it could presumably, if this was a real life person, which in the terms of like the Daredevil show, as opposed to like the Batman cartoon, the Daredevil show is meant to be very realistic.
Well, I think the assumption and the suspension of disbelief with Daredevil is that he is a highly trained fighter who would theoretically know how to safely incapacitate someone. Because he doesn't always knock people out. He sometimes just like, granted it's grievous bodily harm, but he will sometimes like break a leg or find a way to pin them under something in a way that they can't fight him anymore.
Yeah.
So like I see what you're getting at, but I really think you're focusing on the wrong thing.
Well, what I'm supposed to be focusing on is that they had a fight and this dude took out a bunch of dudes.
Yes.
And that's the thing, but like ever since this argument was posed to me, I can't stop thinking about that, where I'm like, it is like, imagine if somebody tried, and I know it's totally unrealistic, but if somebody tried to be a vigilante in real life,
actually,
and did
there are people who do put on costumes.
I know about like Phoenix Jones and stuff like that, and those are just like, that's like basically neighborhood watch.
With a costume.
But if somebody actually really tried, if somebody like trained in Krav Maga or some crap for 10 years, Krav Maga,
Krav McGraw Hill.
Krav Maga, or
martial arts.
Yeah. for 10 years, like you got a jujitsu man who's just gonna be like, all right, I can fight crime. I know jujitsu. I don't give a crap. And like it's just like, well, I'm not gonna kill anyone because that's what Batman does, what Spider-Man does, what this and this and that and that. And like nobody, like you gotta have that moral high ground for it. Just bust dudes up and then gets arrested. Like you like are charged with like 2 counts of murder or manslaughter, and like probably 3 more for manslaughter, and then like this and this and that, and like dudes in wheelchairs, dudes in comas. I don't know. You can't it doesn't work in real life, and that's why I would say like. And I'm not saying I'm advocating for like that you get rid of knocking somebody unconscious as a narrative device or as like this thing that superheroes do.
It's just something that's been bugging you lately.
It's been something that's been bugging me, and I would lose my bananas if any property took that in this direction where you have someone who has like you have a superhero that starts. If Jessica Jones did this and Jessica Jones was like, I'm not going to kill anybody. I'm not that kind of person. You can tell me that in a sec. When I get through this point, Jessica Jones or someone or like whatever superhero they're going to make a Netflix series about next. It's just like, okay, well, I'm not going to kill anybody. I don't have
Fist.
Really? That's pretty cool. Or like, I'm not going to kill anybody. Like, that's not my thing. Like, I'm a moral person. I can't have that weighing on my conscience. 5 episodes later, she finally gets like caught or something. And they're like, you've killed 12 people by severely beating them in the skull. This man, his brain swelling went so bad that he had an aneurysm. This dude has had a stroke. This dude has had both. And he's in a wheelchair forever. And she has to look at that dude, the dude in the sad scene who said "kill me" on the notepad because he couldn't move his hand, and his weird Jesus mom was just like, "It's all God. God will keep you in the chair forever." And then she has to look a dude in the face when she did that to some dude.
I mean, it's happened in the comics before. It's definitely something that's been addressed a couple times, but I mean, there's no way to kind of avoid that.
I'm
just for the sake of like moving the plot along, there's no way to avoid that.
Yeah, I would just love if somebody like took that in the other direction and like did that analysis and did that commentary in the media itself.
A web serial for you to read. It's prose. It's not a comic.
That's chill.
And there's a lot of it, so it's a lot of reading. But I love it, and it's awesome, and you will love it too for a couple reasons. It's called Worm, and it's super long. Like it took this guy just wrote like a couple chapters a week for like years.
If I could get it like printed in a book and just
I think he's planning to self-publish it, but I'll link you to the blog that he wrote it on.
Cool, I'd be down for that.
It's like a WordPress blog though.
But
I like it for 2 reasons. In that one, it establishes a superhero universe where people get the root of all superpowers is like one thing. No matter, like everybody has different ways of getting superpowers. No, everybody has different ways of getting superpowers, but it's all like one thing that causes superpowers, like one chemical reaction, so to speak, or something. That's not. If you read it, it's more nuanced than that, but like one root cause of superpowers. Yeah, and it's a very like realistic, down to earth take where like the main character's superpower is the ability to control bugs, and she's super like squishy and fragile in the sense that like if she takes a hit, she takes a hit with capital letters. Like she is down.
I mean, like I could fall off a chair and break my wrist, and then that's 6 months.
Right, exactly. Like there's a chapter where she breaks something, and like she is forced to work around that for like a month.
Great.
Or like there's a bit where somebody throws a flashbang and she's like temporarily blind for like a whole day while she's out super adventuring.
That's cool.
It's really good.
I would love incidental obstacles for something. Like something not related to being in a fight. Like Daredevil has to have an episode where he like got food poisoning just somewhere living his life or something. And then it becomes a plot point that he had food poisoning and then something screwed up and that affects it. But that was just a random occurrence in your life is maybe you get food poisoning. But then he has to go fight crime when he's crapping his pants and that becomes a problem. And that affects the rest of the series was something that happened.
That's like a One Punch Man routine.
Something that happened because he crapped his pants led to events that affect the rest of the story. It like something that like the broad narrative is affected by a random occurrence.
There's stuff in Worm like that. It's not as silly as that, but it's like,
well, yeah, nothing really silly.
I have a test today, so I can't go out and stop this crime. And oops, this thing happened today. And if I'd been like out and about, maybe it wouldn't happen.
Something that happens off screen.
Yeah,
like where someone comes back and like the superhero, like or the supervillain had a stroke because he was an old man living in a cave. And he's just dead, and like so that narrative's sort of over. And now where do we go?
Worm is very grounded in reality in that regard, in the sense that like they're people dealing with very real problems who just so happen to be like have superpowers. Chill. Also, the guy's really good at coming up with creative superpowers.
I love creative superpowers.
Like there are in that story, no 2 superheroes have the same power.
Cool.
And there's a lot of superheroes by the end.
Cool.
And it's really cool. And also, it's really cool in the sense that most of the super powered individuals have like only one or two powers. They don't have like a suite of powers in the way that, you know, Superman does or Spider-Man does, where like Spider-Man is super strong and he has
Agile,
super agility
webs,
and spider
spider
sense,
sense.
like, and later he can see in the night.
And
in
he can
later
talk to
comics,
spiders.
He cannot. But you know, like it's like the main character's singular power is communicating with bugs.
Cool.
Or not even communicating, controlling bugs.
And is that bugs? Is that arachnids?
Have you played Mass Effect 2?
Yeah.
Assuming direct control.
Okay, it's chill. Puts a brain in those bugs.
Not necessarily. It's like she is the center of the hive mind, and she kind of directs them.
Chill. Nice.
And she does control spiders. Yes, she eventually makes her costume out of
It's
spiders.
called worms. She makes worms. Worms aren't even bugs. They're weird like
But
arthropoids
it's really
or some
good,
crap.
and there's also some really amazing, like psychologically flawed characters in there that are really awesome. In that they're terrible people, but their stories are really like intriguing.
Yeah.
So you should read it. What else? I was going to say something else.
I wanted to talk about something about positivity and the mindset. Like I just described, like I say, like, okay, being knocked unconscious is garbage, like in this and this and way in the media. But like, I'm not saying like, okay, we should stop having that as a thing, or we should do that more realistically. I'm saying like, I think it's funny and it's weird how being knocked unconscious is portrayed so like casually and harmlessly in the media.
Okay, because the way you were saying it is very like it's a bad thing and we should never do it.
Well, it's been a frustration of mine personally.
Well,
recently.
no, I can understand that. Like when you see something that's relied on very heavily in stories, it does become a little annoying to see it over and over.
Especially when I know like it's not. But my point is,
well, that's like when I watch hackers on like crime dramas where it's like
I want to get to that. No, I want to get to that too. I want to get to that. I had a point for that in a second. Where then I like to take it in the direction. I mean, I used to always say like I hate this and this and this about this, or I see something that happens like some trope and I'm like I hate that they do this, or like it's so overused and cheesy, and I'm like it's highly used, it's probably overused, but like how can that be used good? Where I'm talking about like some hypothetical show where they actually bring about like the knocked unconscious brain damage type crap in a good way, in a creative new direction, or something like and I sort of transformed over the last couple of years the I hate this thing mentality into I love this, or I think that this is weird, and here's something you could do with it. That's not just destructive about some idea or some trope. That's like
that's constructive.
That's it's constructive on it. And one of the other examples I have is cartoon hacking, where you're in a heist, okay, and you've got your demolitions guy, you've got your getaway guy, you got your hacker to get past the laser grid, and you're getting in, and you're just like, I need those lasers down now, and the hacker says like it's gonna take 5 minutes, and he's like, you have 2 minutes, click. And of course like the hacker like gets it done just in time or some crap. And but I want there to be like one, and it's ridiculous. You can't just like rush a computer program or something, and that's goofy. And like I want at some point like some heist thing to just be like the dude like gets to the room and the lasers are still up and he's like, why are the lasers still up?
Because
and he's
I
like,
have to do this,
it's still running. I said 5 minutes. There's still 3 minutes left. And he's like, I said 2 minutes. I'm like, I can't make the computer go faster, dude.
Yeah.
This is the program. I'm running it. I said 5 minutes. We planned for this. I can't rush this. I don't care how many dudes with guns are after you. And then so it follows like a 3 minute long argument until the lasers come down. That would be hilarious. I would love that.
That would be pretty funny.
Or
That's kind of like the...
I can't, like, yelling at the computer doesn't make it go faster.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty
And they're just like
That would be
bickering
funny.
on the phone or some crap.
Yeah.
I would love that.
I think people need to be less negative in general. Less confrontational, more civil, less negative. Like more positive, more constructive, more civil.
Because it's
Just
sort of
because
like...
everybody gets along better and better things come of it when people are civil.
One of the healthiest things I ever read personally was a Casey Green webcomic from his Gun Show series.
I love that guy.
He's a great dude. Oh my gosh. Gosh. But where there was some frog or something with like sunglasses and a backwards cap. And he just said, hey, quit getting mad about video games. And like that hit me at a time where that like struck me that when I was deep in this like negativity, this nerd culture negativity stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I should quit getting mad at video games. And then it transformed it and just being like, oh, this is crap. Well, like that's just negativity into like this is maybe it's goofy, maybe it's like dumb or funny or something, but like or maybe it's like dumb, but then it becomes funny and it's like
the height of a moral panic in the games industry, and like it very smoothly, I don't know if it was intentional or not, addressed both sides of the issues where like people were getting like morally outraged over video games, and then people were getting outraged over the outrage, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I'm looking this up right now because it's just fun.
Have you watched, just to completely change gears, have you watched any of the One Punch Man show?
I've watched all of the One Punch Man show.
Okay, good. Because the animation is superb.
So you're listening to The Slouch on 92.3 WKVR. I'm DJ Jdox. I'm here with Static. And we always come in here on Tuesdays to talk about some good stuff and some nerd garbage. We had some interesting social conversation and media analysis earlier, and I hope you enjoyed that. But if you're not interested in talking about the fairly obscure new anime cartoon series One Punch Man, I think that our conversation is going to become a little bit esoteric and disinteresting. Just not interesting to you, so you're more than welcome to continue listening, and like we'll try to keep it at a not too like in-depth level, or at least we'll try to explain some of the stuff that goes on with it. But just heads up, if you don't want to listen to some total dorks talk about anime for a bit, have a good night. Thank you for listening.
I was just gonna say I like that they finally got to the. One of the things I love about One Punch Man is they give the villains like really like detailed backstories and like build up, and like then
and then like
Saitama just shows up and he's like.
So One Punch Man is a really cool anime. We're gonna explain it now because we have to do that. Okay. One Punch Man is a really cool anime series.
Explain things.
Is a really cool anime series that was based on a really cool manga series that was based on some dude's like crappy like drawn web comic series that was like totally scribbled together. I mean, I don't insult it, but it was totally scribbled together and it was goofy. Then they turned that into like a real manga series, and then which turned into a real anime series with the most phenomenal animation.
Oh my God,
it's centered around the character
good.
of Saitama, who's this bald dude, like excessively normal and like too chill for his own good and disinterested
he's like
in
hyper
everything.
average, where his face is like less detailed than everyone else's, except for like in extreme moments.
He's like an emoticon of a person. Yeah, he's like got no face.
And like his backstory is just like, I'm a hero for fun. I do 100 sit-ups and 100 push-ups
just
every day.
Just do some basic training. But however, his key thing is that he is excessively overpowered. In this world,
everything can be beaten with a single punch.
Nobody can touch him. Like he's stronger than anything, and he's called One Punch. He's not called One Punch Man. The show's called One Punch Man because he literally, if he punches something, it'll just explode into guts. It takes one punch to defeat any villain, no matter how strong.
Well, I really
He's
liked.
just too powerful for his own good.
How they did the Deep Sea King in the show, because they give you like an episode of him just like wrecking everything in his path,
just
and like
too good.
Just literally like kind of Dragon Ball Z style, like just literally continually powering up and getting like bigger and scarier, and like becoming like more and more evil.
Just
like I'm going to
people.
eat you people.
Like no one
and,
can
like,
touch him.
Literally tearing Genos apart in the most recent episode, and then Saitama shows up and like he punches him in the head, and he's like, "Oh, you must be really strong."
And his head just kind of goes doing.
He runs at Saitama, and Saitama just goes boop, and like the animation in that moment is great because it's just like there's a moment and then boosh.
He does this little like fist bump tap on the dude. A big hole opens up in the guy's torso,
and his eyes fall out.
And his eyes fall out, and it's like it's pouring down rain in this scene, and just like there's a shockwave.
Stops.
There's a shockwave that pushes all of the rain back, and suddenly it's like a sunny day.
Yeah.
Oh, but it looks so cool, and oh man, but
also
it's an extremely well animated, extremely well written.
Also, people have modded Fallout 4 so that you can play
I've seen that.
Saitama.
Callbacks.
Nick Valentine could be probably modded to be Genos,
robot.
His apprentice.
Genos is
his robot apprentice,
cool
cyborg apprentice,
who is totally serious and like has like limitations to himself and stuff, and like takes everything really seriously and like wants to learn seriously, and like
he tries to train under Saitama, who has like nothing to teach him.
He totally buys into the total like anime like narrative.
He's the stereotypical protagonist.
He's the cool brooding dude with like crazy powers and a dark backstory.
And he's immediately put as like one of the highest ranked heroes and gets all the fan mail.
And Saitama
gets like death threats and like you can't be real. You're clearly a cheater. Yeah. You're ranked C.
And he's just this dude who like walks to the store, and then there's like some like huge overpowered monster or something,
and he
just
destroys it on his way home from the store.
Yeah, because like the monsters always like slight him in some way, where like it'll be this giant colossus that's just wrecking the entire city, and it like steps on the bus that Saitama was trying to take or some crap.
Yeah, and he's like,
and he would just be like, now I have to wait for the next one.
And then he'll get mad and he'll like punch the monster.
And he'd be like, "Hey, what's your problem, dude?"
Or like in the where did you get all this seaweed from? Oh, I found it, and like it had come
after he had beaten up like this incredibly powerful like seaweed tentacle monster.
Yeah, that had beaten up like a bunch of heroes later, and like when he killed it and took the body to like harvest the seaweed and eat it. Like when the heroes woke up after having the crap beaten out of them by this monster, they're like, "Oh man, it's run away!" Like. There's a monster invasion of this city when really like
it's just one dude.
Yeah, Saitama's just killing them all.
Yeah. And oh man, and every once in a while he does get like crazy serious where he'll like just whip it out and just but then
he gets serious over like the dumbest things.
But then he immediately just goes back to like, all right, let's go get udon.
Yeah.
Since it revolves around these people that are like incredibly powerful in like that Dragon Ball Z powerful level where you'll like fall and like it'll slam you against the mountain and the whole mountain will explode or something. Yeah. But like Saitama, like will do these punches that'll leave a smoldering crater in something for nothing. He left a smolder.
He breaks a meteor with his fist, or
Yeah. What was his motive for doing that again? He was just like, don't fall on my neighborhood.
I think that it was
meteor.
really just like, this will be inconvenient.
Yeah. He always just does that. Or like there was this.
Or like the whole reason he beat the guy in like the power suit because like, oh, their trademark is that they're bald, and he's like, no, I'm bald.
Yeah. He's bald, and they were like giving him a bad name by being bald villains or something.
Yeah,
and he's
'cause
just
that was,
like,
like, the trademark
and he's just
of
like,
that gang.
stop doing that. But like that's also like a big like insecurity of his, is that his
bald.
training somehow made him bald.
Yeah.
And
it's like never explained.
and like
Not in the show, and definitely not in the manga. I didn't read the web series.
Yeah.
But like it literally is never
No, they
explained.
explained it that it was just from his training or some crap.
Right, but like they never gave a reason like why his training caused him to go bald.
And the
'Cause it's a
training
gag.
and the gag for this training that gave him such incredible superpowers was that it's like they were doing this thing and be like, Sensei, tell me your ultimate training technique. How did you become so powerful? And be like, I'll tell you my
100
training method. And he said 100 sit-ups, 100 push-ups, and a 10K run
Every day.
every day.
And he's like, I know some days it'll be hard. You'll wake up and you'll not want to do it, but you have to do it. And like Genos is just sitting there like, but that's just physical training.
That's basic strength training.
Yeah.
100
And he's like, that
squats.
can't explain how you got so
And
powerful.
didn't he say like
And,
also he's just like,
Saitama's just
I
like,
eat 3 square meals and I get a good night's sleep.
yeah, yeah. And Saitama, like when Genos is like, that's like purely physical, like simple physical training. Like there's no way you can get that powerful doing it. Like it like goes to Saitama and it's like his serious face. He's like, I have nothing else to say. That's all I do. I need to make up some stuff because he's paying for some of the rent.
Yeah. But it's just this like weird like crazy normal dude who like nothing phases him and like just does whatever, which if you were like crazy powerful and like the problem with him is that like everything's boring. He wants to fight somebody.
Yeah, well,
and, like,
that's why
and
his
it be a
face is like
challenge.
super not detailed most of the time because he's like really emotionless because he's like existentially bored.
He's really detached from everything.
Right, because he's like bored with everything because nothing is difficult for him anymore.
Yeah. Even all like the wackiness of like crazy monsters that go on around him is just like.
Well, I just like how they contrast like the simplicity of Saitama and his backstory with like really complex enemy designs and like the build up to the enemies and the backstories for the enemies where like the Deep Sea King is like monologuing about, oh, like all life comes from the sea and since I'm the king of the sea, and Saitama's just like boop,
Yeah.
dead.
Oh man, but it's also really funny. Just the whole thing is, I mean, the premise is goofy, but it's extremely funny
they
as
could
it
have really
is.
botched it. Like the animation would have still been awesome, but like they could have really botched the comedic timing in the show. They nailed it.
They stuck to the, like his backstory, why he became a hero, was that he was like just a normal like businessman, and he was bored, and he was miserable, and he was probably like he was gonna go kill himself or something.
He was going home to kill himself.
And there was this crab monster. This like goofy cartoon crab monster, like serial killer with this goofy face, and he had some dumb backstory. He was wearing like tidy whities for some reason.
Yeah.
And he was on his way to like find some kid with a butt chin.
Yeah.
Like a chin like a butt, and literally like the character like is walking along, man, and she's like, all right, well, whatever, crab man. And then he sees the kid with a butt chin, and he's like, what? But the reason this crab monster wanted to kill this kid was because he drew nipples onto the crab man's like carapace torso, and he's like, and I can't wipe it off with these claws.
Yeah.
I've got nipples drawn on me.
And then Saitama's just like, and then I decided to kill the lobster monster.
And then like ensues this like extremely dramatic and like intense and serious like thing about just like, you can kill me, I don't care, I'm gonna defeat you or something.
Yeah.
And then
Well, no, he's like, I have nothing left to live for, so I'm gonna try and fight you.
yeah.
Because why not?
Meanwhile,
That's literally his origin story. Because why not?
like all the enemies are always doing this constant like that anime like villain foppish monologuing, which is like,
Yeah.
you puny humans, it is
Yeah,
the
and,
right
like-
of the powerful to crush those that are weak. That's
And
what I'll do,
Saitama's
and
just
nothing
like,
will stand
"Eh?"
in my way. Like that, and he's just like, whatever.
Well, I liked how they determined whether Genos was supposed to be S rank or not, which was the highest rank, because like they took that laboratory and
In
they're
the
like, we've been
ranking of
monitoring this laboratory.
superhumans.
Did you destroy it? And like Saitama did, but Genos was involved, and their question was, were you involved in this? And he was like, yeah.
That was there.
And so it's like you're an S rank, and your boss is, or your friend who really did most of the heavy lifting here is rank C.
And that's the sad thing. Saitama
Well,
gets
and the reason
no
he went
credit for
promotion
anything.
is like these weekly quotas are a pain.
Yeah, you
not
have
for
to,
like
like,
the prestige, but
maintain
like
quotas.
it's a pain to have to find a crime once a week.
Yeah, and he like is constantly like getting is he like getting credit stolen from him or something?
No,
but he's
no.
accused
people
of stealing
think
people's
he's a
credit.
cheat because
Yeah, because he's
lots
this
of
like
reasons.
totally normal,
'Cause
unassuming
he like
dude.
shows up and saves the day at the last
And
minute
just
for
punches
these, like,
some dude to bits.
insane situations where
Where
like a bunch of high-powered heroes have thrown themselves at it and failed, and he just like solves it super fast.
Where there was a point where he actually did sacrifice the renown for himself
'cause,
because
like,
he beat this like underwater
king.
fishman king, the deep sea king, and everyone's just like, oh my god, look at that guy, he's real.
Well, at first everyone was, oh my god, and then like I guess basically the Japanese personification or the anime personification of like
the
an
garbage
troll,
internet dude, yeah.
was like, oh well, man,
Well, if this normal dude can beat the monster, then he must not have been that
these
tough.
other
What are
heroes
the
must have been like really bad if a rank C can beat the, which is like completely kind of backwards reasoning.
Yeah, but like it got the people riled up, and then Saitama heard that, and he was just like, "Ha, you guys, you just watched me take credit for that."
For everyone else's work.
After that, he had been weakened so much by the better heroes, but I'm gonna get credit for this, and he sort of like really threw himself under the publicity bus for the sake of his friends.
The bicycle rider hero like meets him in a noodle stand. He's like, I know what you did for everyone. I'm gonna get you drunk tonight.
Yeah, the bicycle rider is like the purest, most good-hearted hero. He's like, it's a riff off of Kamen Rider, who like has motorcycles all the time, but he's just this normal dude.
Moomin Rider.
Moomin Rider, but he's this dude just on a bicycle with like this basic like dirt bike armor or something.
Basic
like a helmet and goggles, and he's just on a bicycle, and he's got no superpowers or nothing, but he shows up and like
punches people
and tries to fight people, and like for this incredibly overpowered like deep sea king who like nobody could beat.
Yeah,
and he's just this normal dude.
He gets like almost killed, and he's like, I'm still gonna fight. And there's like a really touching moment where the kid's like, we believe in you, and then everyone else is like, yeah, you can do it, Moomin Rider. And then he just like is obliterated.
Yeah,
and everybody's like mouths agape.
But he gets smacked like on nothing, like, and he's like all messed up and he's bloody and his goggles are cracked, and
there was a moment where
he gives
I thought
this intense
that he
monologue.
got his arm torn off.
Yeah, but he gives this intense monologue about being like, I'm not gonna give up. You think I don't know that I'm the weakest freaking guy? Like, I don't have anything. I have a bicycle. but like he is just like, but I'm still.
It's like a really stereotypical anime moment.
But it's worth dying to at least try to fight you.
It's like the speech is very stereotypical anime, but like the moment as a whole where like the kid starts cheering, then the crowd starts cheering, is like really just kind of.
That's so West.
It's almost a universal thing. No, it's.
I think that
that
seems really slow clap to me.
It's popular like everywhere. You see those kinds of moments and stories everywhere where like the underdog has his moment, and the crowd is suddenly with him.
Yeah.
That's something for some reason people just like that.
You know what?
But that happens, and then it's completely like the wind is knocked out of their sails.
Yeah. You know, it occurred to me just now that Moomin Rider and Saitama, the protagonist, are like polar opposites in regard to form and function. Saitama is all normal dude, like,
ridiculously strong.
Normal dude persona, like extreme superpower physicality, and Moomin Rider is extreme superhero mentality
with no physicality.
Extreme normal dude physicality.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird.
It's funny.
It's really funny. It's an excellent show. I think we got to cut it off.
Yeah, we probably should.
So thank you for listening to the Power 92.3 WKVR. I'm Jdox. I'm here with
Static.
I always want to make you say your own name.
I don't know why.
I mean, you've been listening to the Slouch, our Tuesday late night show where we come on, we talk about all kinds of cool garbage. Man, we've been on here for like 2.5 hours, which is I think fairly average for us.
And as usual,
in the way things go. And we talk about some nerd garbage and some political or social issues, and we got into some media interpretation there, and that was interesting. That's my favorite, honestly, is media analysis stuff. But,
I like it. I just don't like it when people take a moral perspective on it, because I think media is like inherently amoral. We sort of superimpose our own interpretations on it. Most of the time. That's not to say there is not art with moral messages, but.
Well, actually, like, I mean, any sort of narrative thing is designed to make the morality implicit to it. So that like people are going to form their own morality to it, but you want to guide them to the morality that you want to get through with it by making it subtle. That makes sense. That's a sort of narrative paradigm type thing. Okay, but if you sent a letter in this last week, we lost our mail. Well, I was gonna explain it a little better than that. I'm sorry, there was a mix-up over Thanksgiving break, and I lost letters. So if you sent mail in, I'm sorry. I can't remember if there were any for the Slouch. There were some for What's in Our Mailbox, so that sucks. And I'm sorry, I might not be playing your requests on Thursday because I don't have them and I don't remember, and I apologize for that. But if you send them in again, I will definitely get on that. It won't happen again. Hey, but thank you very much for listening. I'm going to throw it on back to the normal programming, so far as you can say normal. But thank you for listening. We've been having fun. Oh, also, I should say, because I never do this, We've been listening to a lot of dream pop and shoegaze. This is currently Malka, Mientras se respira. We also heard a lot of The Vergence and Nicole Dullinger. I think because I want to start uploading these, I want to like pare it down to like maybe one or two artists, or two or three artists, so they can be listed easily. I want to get these compilations off of here because that could get really complicated. Anyway, if you'd like to send in any mail, if you'd like to respond to any of the points we touched on this week, or would like to bring up some points, maybe we can talk about next week. I mean, anything, social issues, nerd garbage, anything you're feeling like, you can send that to the Slouch, Juniata College, Box 726 at 1700 Moore Street, Huntington, Pennsylvania 16652. Again, that is Box 726. And we will be talking about that next week. We are going to be around next week, yeah?
Yeah,
I didn't give the preface that we would be out for Thanksgiving break because I left on Tuesday. Anyway, enough about me. Thank you for listening. Good night, everybody. There's a certain like crazy recognizability to that. I mean, so something I saw over break, my brother showed me. You ever heard of Andy Milonakis?
No.
He's this dude who's a comedian and he does like all kinds of media stuff. Dude's like 55 or something, but he's got some disease where he looks like he's 12 forever. It's like, I mean, he makes it work for him. Like shit does he make it work for him because he looks like this pudgy, awkward 12-year-old kid. And he's been doing like rapping and stuff with Riff Raff. He had a whole like surrealist comedy show for a while. Really interesting dude. Does a lot. He's a cool guy. Like, chill out.